The light over Blackwater Bay was the color of hammered bronze, the morning the northern party slipped through the city gates, hidden beneath the swirl of banners, carts, and the endless bustle of a capital that cared more for gossip than for faces. Jon rode near the rear of the column, cloak drawn high against the ocean wind that swept through the streets in briny gusts. He kept Ghost at heel, the dire wolf's white fur standing out like moonlit snow against the dingy stone. Small folk pointed and whispered, some in wonder at the beast, some in fear. But none lingered long upon the quiet young man in stark gray and Night's Watch black. To them, he was merely another curiosity in a city swollen with nobles, come to toast a king they whispered of with equal parts awe and revulsion. He had not wanted to come. The wall still called to him in restless dreams. The thin, bitter air, the endless white, the promise he had sworn beneath the eye of gods and men. But the raven had come from Sam in Old Town only a month past, words scrawled in a hand so hurried the ink had run. Jon, you must hear what I have found. It changes everything. Come south, discreetly. Trust only Maester Aemon's seal. Trust only Maester Aemon's seal. A second message, delivered the next day by a courier with no sigil, had spoken more plainly. Your mother was Lyanna. Your father was not the man you believed. The truth is life and death. So he had gone to Castle Black's rookery in the chill before dawn and penned a letter blank, save for one line. I will return. Before ordering his things packed. It had taken days to barter passage with fishermen bound for Gulltown. Longer still to ride in disguise through the Vale and Riverlands, shadows dogging every mile. But he had come, and Ghost had come, and now the Red Keep's red stone rose before him, a jagged crown above the teeming city, and inside those walls sat answers. Though no banners announced them, Sir Roderick Castle met the party at the stables. Age had stooped the knight's heavy shoulders, but his grip was iron when he clasped Jon's forearm. You've outgrown Winterfell, lad, he murmured, voice a rasp of smoke and memory. But the gods know we need Starks here. His eyes flicked to Ghost, and the ghost of a smile touched the wearied mouth. Your father's sigil in living flesh. Let any who doubt your blood look to the wolf. Jon dismounted and pressed fist to chest in greeting. I ride for answers, Sir Roderick, not honors. Sam swore Maester Aemon's seal. Hush. The older knight's one good eye darted around the courtyard. Walls have ears, even the stones drink secrets here. You will have your answers, but not amid gawkers. He jerked his head toward a side door half hidden beneath a sagging arch. The Lady Sansa waits. Jon's heart lurched. He had not seen his half-aged sister since the day Ned Stark rode south with his daughters, bronze leaves spiraling through the courtyard on an autumn wind. She had been a child then, dreaming of songs and tourneys. Now she was a woman forced to smile for a king who had murdered her father. He drew breath to steady himself, signaled Ghost to his side, and followed Sir Roderick through echoing passages that smelled of damp mortar and horse sweat. Torches guttered in their sconces, casting wavering light across tapestries of old Targaryen victories. Dragons roaring above battlefields scorched to glass. They passed unseen servants, a pair of Lannister guards half dozing at their post, a septa whose black eyes lingered on Jon before darting away. At last, Roderick pushed open a weather-worn door. Sun streamed through narrow windows cut high in the walls, striping the floor with gold. Sansa stood at the far end, framed by the light, red hair unbound and tumbling over shoulders stiff with poise. The smile she offered was fragile glass, lovely, brittle, hiding fractures too deep for any plaster. Jon. His name left her on a sigh like winter's first thaw. She crossed the chamber with unhurried grace, each step measured as though she trod the edge of a blade. When she reached him, her composure wavered. She touched his cheek, then threw arms around him, pressing her face to his neck. He felt the tremor in her shoulders. Little sister, he whispered, though they were near the same height now. He smoothed her hair as she had once smoothed the lady's pelt. Ghost circled them, sniffing, uneasy. Roderick cleared his throat. My lady, the hour shortens. You wanted privacy. Sansa drew back, cheeks wet but eyes already drying in the heat of purpose. Yes, close the door. She waited until the latch clicked. Samuel Tarly arrived 3 nights past, under escort of city watchmen who owed Sir Donal Noy a favor. He and Maester Aemon hunted every scroll they dared in the citadel's dark. They uncovered claims long buried. Her voice dipped lower, words tight with urgency. Jon, the dragon prince Rhaegar annulled his marriage and wed our aunt Lyanna in Dorne. Maester Aemon believed the proof irrefutable. They had a child, a son born in the Tower of Joy. Jon felt the room tilt, as though some vast hand had turned the world upon its side. Sam hinted as much. But to prove the betting, annulment, remarriage, that means the boy would be legitimate. His pulse drummed in his ears. Where is this son? Sansa only looked at him, and in her eyes he saw Ned Stark's quiet sorrow mirrored. Here, she breathed, alive and grown. The child is you, Jon. Words fled him. He heard only the roar of blood, and faint beneath it, the distant cry of gulls beyond stone walls. No, he managed. I'm Ned Stark's. You are his son, Sansa said fiercely. In every way that matters, but your blood is Stark and Targaryen both. Rhaegar's heir. Sam carries the confirmation, annulment decrees sealed with the Great Seal of Dorne. A copy of the marriage ledger of the faith, entries in High Septon Maynard's journal. Sir Roderick saw them, as did I. Roderick stepped forward. I served your father all his life. I know his hand. The promises he made on his sister's deathbed were to hide you from Robert's wrath. He chose dishonor, as men called it, so you might live. The knight's one eye shone, bright with the flame of some long-banked ember. But times change. Robert is dead. Joffrey is a monster few love. The North bleeds. If the realm knew a true dragon with a wolf's heart lived. Jon's breath came shallow. Tell the realm. He pictured banners fluttering over fields of blade-gleaming chaos. Men cheering, men dying. A.T. Even my brothers of the Watch. You swore oath to the realm, not to false kings, Sansa said. And you swore that oath believing you were a bastard with no place in the world beyond the ice. Now you know the wall was exile for a prince. Ghost growled, low and restless, as though the wolf sensed storms forming beyond every word. Jon placed a calming hand on the ruff of fur. I swore nonetheless, he said. Oath-breakers do not make good kings. Sansa's jaw set, stubborn as any northern stone. But would you bow to Joffrey? Would you bow to Tywin Lannister while he grinds Winterfell's bones into dust? The Watch cannot hold the North if it is burned behind you. Then? Roderick nodded. The old ways bend in war. A king can release a man, or death. His gaze flicked to Jon's sword belt, where Longclaw's white wolf pommel peered. If falsehood kills the realm, no oath will matter. A hush settled. Dust motes drifted through the light. Somewhere deep within the fortress, a bell tolled the 7th hour, high and sweet, a call to courtly audiences. Sansa looked to the windows. The wedding is in 2 days. Lords from every corner gather. Even Oberyn Martell sits in Joffrey's court, hungry for justice against Lannisters. If the truth is spoken before the dragon pit of lords, the faith, the small council, Joffrey cannot unhear it. Nor can the Tyrells, or the Dornish, or the River Lords. A dragon revealed amid roses and lions. She pressed a parchment into Jon's hand, a plan inked in her precise script, names of allies, timings, concealed entrances. You would not stand alone. Jon stared at the curling letters, the map of a future carved between lines. 500 years the realm has known no trueborn Targaryen male, save Viserys, dead across the narrow sea. And Daenerys? Still across the sea, Roderick said. Dragons hatch in 3s, the small folk say. One is dead, one beyond water, one here. His eye burned with fierce conviction. You bear 2 kingdoms in your veins, boy. Boy died a warrior. The word snapped like a lash. Jon folded the parchment, tucking it inside his sleeve. I must think. He looked at Sansa. Tell Sam would speak with him tonight. No one else. She reached out, squeezed his hand. Be careful. Even walls have swords here. No, Oh, ugh. The chambers assigned to Night's Watch emissaries lay deep in the belly of the Red Keep, where corridors dwindled to torchlit ribs. Ghost refused to enter. The direwolf planted paws upon cool flagstones, hair bristling, as if the gloom itself exhaled malice. Jon knelt, scratching behind a pale ear. "Hunt," he murmured. "Find me at moonrise." Ghost licked his knuckles, then loped off, nails tapping. Inside, he found two narrow pallets, a small hearth, a warped table. Sam sat huddled over a kettle, hands trembling around a cup of broth. When he saw Jon, relief flooded the round face. "I feared you'd be kept away," he whispered, though no ears lurked save the mice. "Did Sansa show you the documents?" Jon closed the door, slipped the bolt. He leaned against the wood, suddenly exhausted. "She showed me enough." Sam rose, moving to the chest at his bedside. From within, he drew a leather folio bound with 3 cords. Breaking each, he opened the case and withdrew brittle scrolls, a stained ledger, a small silk pouch. "Maester Aemon helped me copy these. The originals remain hidden in Old Town's vaults. But any archmaester who sees them will know. High Septon Maynard's account speaks of the annulment. Here." He tapped a parchment heavy with vinegar smell. "And this is the marriage record." He fetched the ledger, gently turning crinkled leaves. "Under L. Stark and R. Targaryen. Witnessed by Sir Arthur Dayne and Lord Commander Gerald Hightower." Jon touched the ink with reverent awe. His parents' names side by side, not as myth but as mundane entry, no more adorned than any acolyte's note. Why would the Citadel keep this secret? "Not secret," Sam murmured, pushing spectacles up his nose. "Ignored. Buried beneath centuries of parchment. Who would search for annulled dragon princes? Only a blind maester who knows truth is never lost, merely misplaced. It was Maester Aemon's last gift." Sam's voice cracked. "He died 2 days after we fled. Fever. He made me swear." Tears welled. Jon placed a hand on Sam's shoulder. "You did honor to him." He inhaled the dusty scent of parchment. "But we hold wildfire in our palms. One spark. There is more." Sam reached into the silk pouch and drew forth 2 curved shards of stone. Black as night, yet shimmering with motes of scarlet deep within. "Dragon glass from the Citadel's black cells," he said softly. "Aemon believed you would need proof tangible to the faith. Dragonstone is Lannister held. This is your birthright in your hand." Jon turned one shard between finger and thumb. Light from the hearth danced across its facets. "And what is fire to a realm of ice? The North may not kneel to dragon's blood. No, the North will to a Stark." Sam's tone firmed, surprising them both. "You are not your father's ghost. You are yourself. Jon Stark, Jon Targaryen." He faltered. "You could choose your own name." Jon set the dragon glass down. "Names are wind. Actions weigh." He paced the tight chamber, boot heels thudding. "Suppose I reveal it. Joffrey will rage. Tywin will scheme. Stannis might claim me false. The High Septon could declare me traitor to my vows." He halted, fists clenched. "But if I stay silent, forever a bastard. Then what did Ned Stark's honor buy? Nothing but graves." Under the dim sputter of torchlight, he felt Ned's hand upon his shoulder again. The last time they had spoken outside Winterfell's gatehouse. "You may not have my name," the Lord had said, gray eyes haunted, "but you have my blood, and one day, my truth." The memory smote him. Only now did he grasp the weight his father had borne all those years. The silent oaths, the bitter smiles, the knowledge that every breath was a lie spoken to shield a child from slaying steel. Jon looked at Sam, who watched him with nervous hope. 2 days, he said. "We prepare. But the words must be spoken at the wedding feast, before the faith and realm alike. No backroom whisper can topple a king." Sam swallowed. "You will need allies. Oberyn hates the Lannisters. The Tyrells nurse ambition. The faith will listen to proof and to the word of a respected knight. Sir Barristan Selmy stands with Daenerys now, but Sir Arthur Dayne's sister Ashara might." "Dead," Jon said quietly. "Years ago. I need living swords, living tongues. Who in this court would risk wrath for a lad in black? Yep. A knock rapped at the door. Too sharp, too soft. From habit, Joan's hand found Longclaw's hilt. Sam shot to his feet. The pattern repeated. Jon unbolted the door and swung it wide. A dwarf stood in the corridor, torch behind him casting his shadow tall upon the wall. Tyrion Lannister inclined his head, weary amusement in mismatched eyes of green and black. May I enter? Wine grows thin while we converse in hallways. He stepped past Jon unbidden, gaze flicking over Sam, the parchments, the shards of dragon glass. He arched a brow. Secrets brewing, I see, and dangerous ones. But then, I have always found danger tastes sweeter with a dollop of sarcasm. Jon closed the door slowly. Lord Tyrion, merely Tyrion, I beg you. And you are Lord Snow, though perhaps not for long if rumor flies true. Courtiers prattle louder than gulls at dawn. He perched upon the bunk, swinging short legs. Do you intend to set the throne on fire with dragon flame? Because I should hate to miss the spectacle. Sam stammered. How? Why are you here? Because your direwolf found me drinking and tugged my sleeve like an overgrown hound, Tyrion said. I took the hint. Wolves rarely speak unless their masters have stories worth hearing, and I do adore a good story. He tilted his head at Jon, especially one that will raise Cersei's blood pressure high enough to burst her delicate ears. Ghost padded in behind him, brushing against Jon before settling near the hearth, eyes amber embers. Jon's surprise mellowed into reluctant admiration. The wolf had judged the imp safe, or at least useful. I do not yet know my story's ending, Jon said. Tyrion's smile was thin. Endings are for priests and poets. Let us concern ourselves with beginnings. You plan to announce your illustrious parentage at my loathsome nephew's nuptials. Bold, foolish, exhilarating. I offer my help. Jon weighed the dwarf in silence. Tyrion had given him counsel once atop the wall, kindness unlooked for. Yet he was a Lannister, lion to the bone. Could he be a lie? The alternative, walk alone, loomed starker still. What price do you ask? Tyrion waved a hand. Survival. Revenge, perhaps. Chaos to upset the chessboard upon which my sister lines her pieces. And information. I enjoy knowing truths known to few. Consider me a collector. Mo enter. Sam glanced at Jon, uncertain. Jon nodded. We accept for now. Splendid. Tyrion rubbed palms. First, you must control the stage. A single shout, in a hall full of armed lords, will earn only confusion, and confusion births swords. Better to request the boon of speech from the High Septon during the feast's blessing. The faith prizes legitimacy. Present your documents then, before Septon, lords paramount, and the dragon-fearing masses. Sir Mace Tyrell will fluster, Oberyn will smirk, Tywin will grind teeth, and Cersei, well, she may strangle on her wine. Jon listened. And Joffrey? Tyrion's mouth twisted. My nephew will shriek. But the High Septon's presence and half the realm's eyes will stay his hand. Kings fight duels. They do not butcher petitioners before the gods. At least, not yet. Jon exhaled slowly. The wall. We'll come after, Tyrion finished. If the realm decides you are heir to the Dragon King, the Night's Watch may find absolution a small sacrifice for long-term favor. And should they refuse, he shrugged. Kings have pardoned greater crimes. Ghost growled again, as though cautioning indulgence in dreams. Jon bent to stroke his muzzle. 2 days, he repeated. Find me space to speak. I will bring proof. Tyrion's grin brightened candlelight. I do love a good wedding. Night-draped kings landing in robes of violet and black. The city did not sleep. Braziers glimmered along the streets. Music drifted from taverns, and laughter rose from revelers drunk on anticipation of pageantry. But within the red keep's hidden seclusions, plots coiled tighter than bowstrings. Jon paced the battlements overlooking the dark sweep of the Blackwater. Far below, the river crawled like a sluggish serpent, moon shards shimmering upon its scales. He felt the weight of the city's million souls pressing upon him. Fear, hunger, ambition, hope. North of that water, Sansa bargained with Tyrell ladies in perfumed sitting rooms, playing the courteous captive to glean which ears were open. In the King's Guard wing, Sir Jaime Lannister drilled with Sir Bor, oblivious to the storm brewing. In the dungeons, a black-garbed man awaited orders from Maester Aemon, no longer living. Jon's hand found the pouch at his belt. Dragonglass answered his touch with cool promise. He drew a breath scented with tar and sea salt, let it out in a plume of mist. "Father," he said softly to the dark, "I do not know if what I do is honor or folly, but I do it for the living." Ghost padded beside him, sank onto his haunches. Far off, a horn sounded, a night watchman on rampart patrol. Jon remained, staring toward a horizon cloaked in starlight. Somewhere beyond the world's edge the wall still stood, cold and silent, the oaths he had sworn etched upon its face. But south, a dragon stirred in his blood, and dawn would judge which call he heeded. The morning before the wedding broke warm and bright, as though the very heavens conspired to paint a lie across the sky. Jon rose early, a soldier's habit, and joined Tyrion in the small hall where only a handful of early diners gathered. Servants poured weak ale, bread still warm steamed upon platters. Tyrion pushed a scroll across the table. A list of guests seated on the dais nearest the royal family. Your best witness cluster: High Septon, Mace Tyrell, Oberyn Martell. I convinced Grand Maester Pycelle to shift the Faith Militant's representative 2 seats left to make room for a Night's Watch envoy. He grumbled, but the man loves to hear himself complain. It distracts him from noticing daggers. It distracts him from noticing daggers. Jon scanned names. Sir Kevan Lannister sits 2 places behind. We cannot dislodge every lion, Tyrion said, chewing bread with gusto. But Kevan is reasonable. Tywin will place him as buffer. The real threat is Cersei on the dais. She will try to silence you. Not I. Jon eyed the dwarf. Can you stay her hand? Tyrion washed food down with ale. Perhaps. I will arrange for Marguerite Tyrell to feign faintness just as you approach the Septon, drawing Joffrey's attention. He dabbed his lips. Contriving drama comes naturally to the Queen to-be. Jon's thoughts turned to the young queen. Does she know? Not yet, but she shall. Marguerite respects bold plays provided they do not bloody her rose petals. Tyrion's tone hinted layers of cynicism beneath courtesy. Sam slipped into the hall, cloak askew, eyes alight. It is done, he whispered, sliding onto the bench. I placed copies of every proof under the High Septon's pillow. He will find them when he rises for prayer. No names penned, only the seal of Maester Aemon and the Citadel stamp. He will recognize their authority. Tyrion chortled. Ingenious Samuel. The faith loves nothing more than to believe itself the source of revelation. When our dear Septon reads those proofs, he may believe the 7 themselves answered his devotions. Jon felt something like hope flicker, but with hope came dread. Each step closer to truth narrowed paths of retreat. Thank you, Sam. He grasped the other's shoulder. Today we remain shadows, tonight, vigil, tomorrow fate. Sam nodded, though fear dimmed his smile. Tyrion drained his cup and stood. I go to juggle Queensguard schedules. They shall thank me never. But if we survive, drinks are on you, Lord Snow Targaryen, whoever you choose. When they had gone, Jon sat a moment longer, turning a crust of bread in his fingers, but not eating. He watched sunshafts stream through arrow slits, dust swirling golden. Footsteps echoed down distant corridors. Messengers bearing favors, bakers delivering sugared swans, singers rehearsing bawdy new verses. Life marched heedless, while queens rose and fell. He thought of Daenerys, the sister he had never known, somewhere across the world with her dragons. If Sam's parchments made him prince, what of her claim? Blood might unite them or set them at war. He drew a breath. One truth at a time. He returned to his chambers to polish Longclaw's Valyrian steel, letting the rhythmic motion soothe ragged nerves. The wolf pommel winked silver. Inside the blade's smoky ripples, he saw flickers of the life he had lived. A bastard boy chasing Bran through Winterfell's towers. A recruit trading blows with Elizar Thorne's favorites. A Lord Commander who bled for brothers. Would he abandon them? No. He would fight for them in halls of power rather than atop ice. That must be enough. Ghost's ears pricked. A soft rap at the door followed, the one pattern Sansa used. Jon unbarred it. She entered with a bundle beneath one arm. "I had this made," she said, voice near a whisper. She unwrapped dark velvet to reveal a tabard of black and gray, quartered, stitched with fine silver thread. Upon the left breast, a dire wolf reared. Upon the right, a three-headed dragon, unfurled wings. Bloodred. Wear it tomorrow, if you choose. Jon traced the embroidery, throat tight, the sigils intertwined, neither dominant. "Where did you find a seamstress brave enough?" Sansa's smile held sorrow and iron both. "Some here remember Eddard Stark's justice, and believe Lannister gold is not forever. Besides, seamstresses gossip. The rumors spread already. Best to meet her." Jon folded the tabard carefully. "Thank you." She looked at him, tears glimmering. "When father died, I thought all hope died. Now, I see his will lives in you." He hesitated, then embraced her. Over her shoulder, he glimpsed the city beyond a narrow window, rooftops blazing under noon sun. "Whatever comes," he said, "the pack survives." The afternoon rolled by in tense stillness, like the hush before a charge. Jon, Sam, and Tyrion gathered in a disused sept cloister as shadows lengthened. Sam rehearsed the order of proof. Maynard's journal first, the annulment record, the birth testimony of midwives recorded by Eddard Stark under seal of Dorne's prince. Tyrion fine-tuned the sequence of diversions and courtesies that would grant Jon the floor. Jon himself practiced words aloud, letting them carve grooves in his tongue, clear, measured, unbreakable. When dusk fell, they knelt before flickering candles, not to pray but to bind faith. Ghost lay beside Jon, head on paws, eyes half-lidded yet alert. Sam cleared his throat. "Have you chosen your name, Jon?" Jon looked at the candle's flame. "Jon will do. It was my mother's wish to hide me, but my father named me that night. Whoever I am after tomorrow, I remain Jon." Tyrion raised his cup. "Water tonight. To Jon. May the world hear and not choke on the truth." They drank. Night again. One final sleep, though none slept. Jon sat cross-legged on his pallet, Longclaw across his lap, Ghost curled at his feet. Candlelight danced on steel. He closed his eyes, listening to the wolf's slow breaths, to distant sea, to the grumble of watch sentries pacing outer walls. He thought of Benjen, lost beyond ice. Of Robb, whose banner crowned by a direwolf flew no more. Of Arya, wild as summer, whereabouts unknown. He thought of Ygritte, hair blazing round her face as she died in his arms. And of the free folk who would never again see their world the same. He opened his eyes. The blade across his knees shimmered half-red, half-gray in trembling light. A mirror to the tabard now folded beneath his head. Tomorrow he would carry both into a hall, hungry for blood. And whatever followed, he would stand. Morning. Bells rang long before dawn, tolling the city awake. White Harbor timbrels joined fiery faith horns. Trumpets blared from the King's Gate, answered by drums from Flea Bottom. Spirals of incense drifted from the great sept, curling skyward as if to beckon the seven themselves. Jon donned black doublet, gray breeches, boots polished to a northern sheen. Over them he pulled the tabard Sansa made. Knotted at his throat, it lay snug, the wolf's muzzle meeting the dragon's neck. He belted Longclaw, checked the dragon glass in his pouch, then clasped Sam's forearm. They parted. Sam would seat near the septon, parchments ready. Tyrion would lurk near the dais disguised as nothing more than bored uncle. Ghost vanished into corridors, slipping past guards who tried to bar him. No door could deny a direwolf's will. Jon walked alone through stone arteries thrumming with life. Gold cloaks hustled noble ladies draped in green and red toward the royal gardens, where a feast of 7 courses awaited. Boys in Tyrell livery carried baskets of rose petals. Septus in starched linen chanted prayers. Everywhere, laughter, flirting, boasts of jousting skill, wagers on the bedding. Along the gallery above the throne room, Jon paused, looking down upon the iron throne itself. A sprawl of twisted blades, hammered, riveted, forced to serve. He had dreamt of it once aflame, dragonfire liquefying steel into rivers. Now, seeing it bare beneath banners of stag and lion lashed together, he felt a clarity cold as wall ice. Thrones mattered less than the people beneath them. Yet men killed for seat and crown, and wrote names on battlefield mud with blood. He turned away. Time. The royal gardens had been transformed into a paradise of silk canopies and gilded pavilions. Tables groaned under roast peacocks, swans stuffed with dates, wheels of cheese larger than shields, fountains of red arbor wine. Musicians played near the ornamental lake, harps and flutes weaving lilting melodies over quacking ducks bedecked in ribbons. Guests laughed and fanned themselves in spring warmth. Near the center, raised dais of white marble, the royal family waited to greet arriving lords. Cersei stood in cloth hofgold that shimmered like molten sun. Joffrey beside her preened in crimson and black, crown heavy upon yellow curls. Margaery Tyrell shimmered in green silk with gold roses. Mace Tyrell sweated in doublet tight round his girth, cheeks crimson already. Oberyn Martell lounged near the railing, eyes sharp as daggers, a faint smile playing over sensual lips. Jon moved through thronging laughter. Some recognized the Night's Watch cloak and stepped aside. Others peered curiously at the twin sigils. He sensed gossip ripple like minnows fleeing shark. Wonderful. Let whispers pave his path. Sam sat at a table near the dais, parchments tucked inside a wooden box marked Zepton's Homilies. He gave a quick nod. Tyrion materialized at Jon's elbow, clad in doublet of somber black, mourning color, though no one had died yet. "Ready, my prince?" "Jon," he corrected. "Jon, then." Margaery begins her swoon in approximately 5 minutes. The High Septon will finish his benediction in 7. Time your approach after her faint. The hall will hush. And if it does not, Tyrion flashed teeth. Improvisation is the soul of politics. They parted. Jon found a spot near the foot of the dais steps. Ghost padded from guests' legs. Sitting beside him, Joffrey's purple eyes, so like twin amethysts, narrowed at the wolf. But before he could order removal, Cersei leaned in, murmured. Perhaps she remembered a different direwolf's head once mounted on spikes. Trumpets blared. Silence rippled. The High Septon, corpulent within 7-colored crystal robes, raised hands. "Children of the Seven," his voice rolled across the garden. "We gather in joy to witness holy union." He spoke of love's sanctity, of kingly duty, of roses and lions intertwined. Jon scarcely heard. His pulse beat in his throat. Sweat collected beneath linen. Margaery's faint came right on cue. She swayed, hand to brow. Sansa, playing dutiful lady-in-waiting, cried out. Joffrey whirled in alarm. Cersei's mask slipped an instant, fear strangling her features before rage returned. Tyrell men surged, maesters hurried forward. The garden erupted in hushed gasp. Tyrion gestured subtly. Now. Jon stepped onto the lower dais stair. Ghost followed, hackles raising. Lords murmured at the direwolf's audacity. Jon climbed another step, drawing deeper into view of all assembled. The High Septon looked up from where he dabbed Margaery's forehead with rose water. "Yes, brother of the Black?" he asked, puzzled. Jon drew a breath. "Your Grace," he addressed Joffrey first, voice clear but respectful. "High Holiness, my lords, my ladies. I beg the boon of speech." Cersei's eyes narrowed to green slits. "You will beg nothing," she began. But Tywin, stern beside her, laid a hand upon her arm. Curiosity stayed the queen regent. The High Septon waved a jeweled hand. "Speak, son." "The gods favor truth." Joffrey sneered, but curiosity flickered amid cruelty. "Be quick, Crow. My bride swoons." Jon faced them all. Sunlight glared across silk and steel. He reached into his pouch, drew forth the folded parchments Sam had given. Copies, but faithful. He raised them high. "I, Jon Snow, called bastard of Eddard Stark, come with proof that I'm no bastard, but the true-born son of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Lady Lyanna Stark, wed in legal union under the faith of the Seven." The garden froze. A gasp, collective, sucked breath from 1,000 lungs. Cersei's goblet slipped, wine staining gold silk. Tywin's pale eyes flashed. Joffrey's face contorted. Somewhere a musician's lute twanged off-key. Jon pressed on, every word a hammer upon iron. "Here are records of annulment granted by High Septon Maynard. Marriage witnessed and sealed in Dorne. Birth witnessed by Kingsguard and recorded. I place them before the faith and realm." He stepped forward, offered scrolls to the High Septon. The man's hands trembled as he received them. He unfurled one, eyes widening. He skimmed, lips working, then looked to Pycelle for reading lenses. Tywin Lannister's calm cracked. "Mummer's madness," he snarled. "A bastard's forgery." Oberyn Martell spoke, voice carrying like silk over steel. "A bold claim," he said, smile lazy. "Let the papers speak, Lord Tywin. I, for one, wish to see dragons unveiled." He tapped jeweled fingers together. Joffrey stomped forward, red cloak swirling. "Seize him!" he shrieked at the Kingsguard. "Seize the wolf!" Ghost-bared teeth growling thunder. But Sir Jaime hesitated. His green gaze flicked to the High Septon, who still read, to Tywin, who yet said nothing more, to the crowd's anxious faces. Kingsguard moved not. Jon lifted chin. "I stand unarmed save oath. Let proof speak." The High Septon cleared throat. "These documents bear the Grand Maester's seal. The seal of Dorne's prince. The faith's own signet. I must infer." He turned, nearly stumbling. Joffrey's purple eyes blazed. "Treason?" He lunged, hand at sword hilt. Time slowed. Jon saw blade flash, saw panels of sky between banners, heard ghosts snarl spiral skyward, and he knew chaos had broken. Then, Margaery recovered, flung herself before Joffrey. "My king, mercy," she cried. Her sudden move halted his slash midair. The crowd roared, confusion cresting. Tyrion stepped atop a low table, raising goblet. "Enough." His voice cracked like a whip. "The king will hear the faith's judgment, or his wedding will become a charnel house." Cersei spun on her brother, eyes murderous. But Tywin caught her arm again, hissed something. Reluctantly, she subsided. Joffrey trembled, jaw clenched, but lowered steel. "Speak, then," he spat to the High Septon. "But be swift." The Septon swallowed. Sweat beaded his brow. He looked from the scroll to Jon, then to the throng. "These writings appear genuine. I must verify with the Citadel." He bowed. "But if true, then Prince Jon bears claim by blood to the houses of Stark and Targaryen. The faith cannot deny the sacrament recorded herein." The words fell like anvils. Lords murmured. Flowers wilted in scorching tension. Jon felt his heart hammering, yet kept gaze steady upon the king. Joffrey spat at his feet. "You dragon bastard. Thinked to steal my day? Guards, escort this traitor to the dungeons until our council decides." Now Sir Jaime moved, stepping between Jon and approaching guards. He came unarmed, requesting audience. "No law broken yet, your grace." His tone was careful, but firm. Tywin rose. All eyes turned to the Lion of Casterly Rock. He surveyed the garden, reading countless faces. Tyrells hopeful, Martells amused, Northmen aghast, Riverlords calculating, Crownlanders fearful. He raised a hand. The guards halted. "We shall convene this afternoon in throne room," Tywin declared, voice as cold as red rock. "Let the documents be examined. Until then, Lord Snow will remain under my protection." Gasps met that. Joffrey's mouth fell open. "Grandfather?" Tywin's gaze silenced him. In times of uncertainty, prudent men weigh evidence. Jon met the lion's stare. For an instant, he glimpsed a strange respect lurking behind hard gold eyes. Tyrion leaned close to Jon, murmured, "Well played, Prince." The game board melts. The High Septon motioned to acolytes. "We retire to validate these sacred documents." Jon felt Sam's hand squeeze his as he passed. Relief and fear mingled. Sansa's smile flickered across gathering gloom. As guards formed ring around him, ostensibly protective, Jon realized no path led back to the wall now. Ahead lay only fire, and he stepped into its heart, ghost pacing by his side, direwolf eyes gleaming like embers born anew. The royal procession broke apart in tumultuous streams. Guests whispered, arguing. Laughter forgot. Wine glasses lay overturned on tables. Musicians faltered before resuming uncertain melodies. Within the Red Keep, Tywin guided Jon, Tyrion, and a quartet of loyal guards through a maze of passages leading to a secure solar overlooking the bay. Sunlight danced on waves far below as gulls wheeled over rocking masts. Tywin gestured to chairs. "Sit." Jon remained standing. "I prefer to stand." "As you wish." The Lord settled behind an austere writing desk. "You disrupted a royal marriage ceremony. If your proofs become lies, you will die. If they are truth," his gaze cut like blade, "the realm will bleed. Why did you choose this moment?" Jon spoke plainly. "Because all the realm's eyes were present. Lies thrive in shadows. I brought my truth into light." Tywin steepled fingers. "Truth is not a shield. It is a sword. One thrust at wrong moment will wound hearts you wish to save." His chin lifted. "What do you want?" Jon hesitated. The question had gnawed him all night. "Justice. For Ned Stark. For the North. For the living against the dead beyond the wall." Tyrion arched brow. "Dead? You speak of whites and others?" "My lord father, you should sit for this tale." Jon ignored the jape. "Winter marches. I saw it. The realm wastes time on crowns while doom gathers. My claim may unite North and South beneath one purpose. Or ignite civil war," Tywin countered. "Stannis will brand you usurper. Daenerys Targaryen may cross sea to stake her claim. Dorne's princes might raise banners for a dragon nephew. The faith militant could resurrect. Balance teeters. Nenikeserol. Better truth in chaos than lies in silence," Jon said. Tywin regarded him a long time. "Perhaps. Yet chaos favors those prepared. I would not see realm crushed because you yearn for identity." Before Jon could answer, a servant rapped, announcing the High Septon. The rotund holy man entered, scrolls in sweaty hands. "Lord, hand these proofs. I have dispatched scribes to compare sigils, but all appear authentic. Maester Pycelle attests to Maynard's seal unique molds." Tywin received scrolls, eyes flicking. "Thank you." The Septon looked at Jon, awe mingling with fear. "My prince, if I may call you such, this is divine revelation." Jon inclined head. "Call me Jon, saint or sinner. I bleed alike." The Septon bowed out. Tywin folded hands atop scrolls. "Until Citadel confirms, the king will hold council. You shall attend. Speak measuredly. The boy king's temper is wild, but mine is keen." He rose. "For now, you remain guest, not prisoner. Sir Jaime will escort you to quarters." Tyrion sighed. "Father, if your courtesy becomes daggers later, at least polish them first." Tywin ignored him. Jon nodded. "I will come." As Jaime led him away, Tyrion fell in beside, muttering, "We stand upon thin ice over wildfire." Jon answered, "Then tread softly." The rest of the day passed in whirlwind of depositions, whispers, consultations. Citadel ravens flew confirming scrolls bore genuine wax from Old Town vaults. Dorne's envoy, Prince Oberyn, smirked through each update, as though vindication of sister's honor pleased him deeply. Tyrell scrambled to recalculate alliances. Littlefinger vanished to gather secrets. Varys fluttered with nervous courtesy. By dusk, one fact stood. The parchments were real. Jon found himself summoned to the throne room filled only with small council, Kingsguard, and a handful of witnesses. Joffrey perched upon the Iron Throne like a petulant gargoyle, crown askew. Cersei stood rigid, eyes burning. Tywin at Joffrey's side held the returned documents. High Septon intoned, "By evidence accepted, we declare Prince Jon of Houses Targaryen and Stark, born of lawful union, entitled to courtesy of blood." He bowed to Jon. Cersei hissed, "Entitled to nothing but a cell." He broke vows to Night's Watch. Law labels him deserter. Doctrine. Tywin raised hand. And yet the realm may pardon. Lord Snow. He corrected himself. Prince Jon. What say you? Do you renounce crowns and return to black, or seek throne? Jon looked round the hall. At Joffrey's sneer, at Sansa's hope shining behind hush of terror, at Tyrion's questioning tilt. He felt ghosts cloistering behind him. Ned, Lyanna, Rhaegar, Maester Aemon, all watched. "I seek life," he said. "For realm, I will honor my oath, protect the realms of men. If crown helps that, I will bear its weight. If not, I will stand sword in hand on any wall, south or north, to face the night." His gaze fixed upon Joffrey. "But I will not kneel to a tyrant who murders children, nor let lies rule." Joffrey lunged from throne, froth on lips. "Kill him." Kingsguard hesitated. Jaime stepped between again. Tywin's bark stilled them. "Enough. The boy will be heard." His eyes never left Jon. "Council meets dawn. Decide fate." Jon bowed, never bending knee, then turned. Ghost following, doors swinging wide behind. The night air beyond felt sharper than any spear. Yet he breathed deep. Steps echoed as he crossed dark courtyard, moonlight silvering stone. Above, dragons carved into tower lintels seemed to stir, wings unfurling in silent roar. Within Jon's chest, something ancient woke, stretching in warm fire. Tomorrow, dawn would break upon a world that would never again name him bastard. And this was only the beginning. Pa. The sky above the Red Keep bruised to purple as dusk deepened, but torchlight along the ramparts cast the courtyard in restless gold, turning every breath of wind into a riot of flickering shadows. Jon lingered beside an iron-barred window in the outer passage, one palm resting on the cool stone, Ghost pressed close against his legs. Far below, lanterns bobbed like fireflies along the city's wharves, and he could hear the faint clatter of masts knocking together, the intermittent laughter of sailors who did not yet know their world was changing. Footsteps approached. Measured, armored, too light for a guardsman's hobnails. Sir Jaime emerged from a side stair, helm tucked beneath one arm. His golden hair caught the torch glow, and for an instant he looked younger, almost unsure, nothing like the Kingslayer sung through the realm's taverns. "The King's Council is locked in argument," he said by way of greeting. "They sent me to fetch you, then changed their mind and sent me back to stand outside whatever door you happen to stand behind. I dislike being a messenger boy, but here I am." Jon did not move from the window. "Here you are." Jaime closed the distance, boots scuffing. "I wonder if you realize how perfectly you've placed the rest of us on a knife's edge. You may be the truest prince in half a century, or you may be the spark that burns us all alive." He regarded Jon with unsettling candor. "I'm still deciding which suits me. How fares the king? A child throwing stones at a hornet's nest." Jaime's mouth crooked. "He wants to hack off your head then parade it through the streets. Cersei's worse. Father is still silent." "That means he's thinking." Jon let the silence stretch. Distant bells tolled, 6 notes for the 6th hour of night. Ghost sniffed Jaime's gloves and, finding no threat, settled again. Jaime exhaled. "I'm not here to threaten you, if that's what you're waiting for. I came with an offer. One of my own, not my family's." Jon turned, wary. "Speak it. A duel, not steel, words." Jaime's eyes reflected torchlight, green coals flecked with gold. Tomorrow, in front of council, you'll need allies. You have none in armor. I could lend weight. What price? You've drawn a line between truth and obedience. I'd like to know which you value if they part ways. Jaime ran fingers along the gilded lion on his vambrace. If I swear my blade to guard you during these negotiations, you swear to tell me the worst thing you know about my king's honor. Your father died guarding secrets. How many more lie unburied? Jon thought of Ned in the dungeon, of whispered confessions never voiced. I do not wield secrets like blades, he said. But if you stand for truth tomorrow, I will answer you as best I can. In private, no court as witness. Jaime inclined his head. Done. He slipped the helm back on. Rest, Prince Snow. Dawn comes quickly when one dreads it. He strode away, cloak washing behind him. Jon found a sliver of sleep near midnight, stretched across pallet boards that creaked with every breath. When dreams came, they were fragments, a woman's soft laughter echoing off stone, a boy with silver hair chasing snowflakes that melted before they touched his outstretched fingers, a red desert where 3 dragons spiraled overhead, casting shadows like scythes upon cracked earth. He woke before dawn with the taste of ash on his tongue and Ghost's muzzle nudging his hand. Sam arrived bearing a pitcher of watered wine and a plate of bread, cheese, and fruit. Dark circles sacked his eyes. The small folk call you the White Wolf of Dragons now, he said, voice croaky. Word spreads faster than ravens. Jon tore a piece of bread, chewed without tasting. Let them name me as they will. I care how lords name me when spears are massed. Sam eased onto the edge of the second pallet. I copied every document a second time and left them sealed with the Citadel's cipher behind the High Septon's altar. No matter what happens, some record will survive. He worried at a loose thread on his sleeve. The council will press charges of desertion. Expect it early. Oh, Nesser's Mars. I swore to the realm, Jon reminded him. Not to individual kings. Yes, but oaths are letters on parchment to them, easy to twist. Tyrion says Stannis sent a raven demanding the council recognize his claim in light of these revelations. He cites you as proof the dragon line yet lives, so Baratheon blood ranks nearer to Robert than Lion or Rose. Jon grimaced. And Daenerys? Still across the sea, but the spider's little birds whisper that her ships prepare. Sam shivered. Someday soon the world may be too small for this many crowns. Jon stood, fastening the twin sigiled tabard. Then let us keep the realm from tearing before the others even march. Ghost padded to the door first. They followed. The throne room loomed cavernous, lit by hundreds of guttering candles and blazing braziers that spat tang of pitch into the high beams. Along the walls, red keep shields had been draped with veils of deep red and cloth of gold. Today those veils looked suddenly funereal. At the far end, the Iron Throne rose jagged and patient beneath the vaulted ceiling, its shadows spiking like a blackened sunburst. The small council sat at a semicircular table below the steps. Tywin in the center, Cersei rigid on his left, Pycelle wheezing beside her. Lord Mace Tyrell fanned himself opposite Varys, whose smooth brow betrayed nothing. Oberyn Martell leaned back in his chair, expression one of languid fascination. Tyrion occupied a low seat near his father, wine cup untouched. Kingsguard ringed the hall, white cloaks bright as new-fallen snow. Jaime stood just right of the throne, helm off, hair stringing from the damp of early morning drill. He met Joan's glance with the briefest nod. Joffrey descended the steps and seated himself on an ornate chair placed one tier below the throne, ostensibly a concession to fatigue, though more likely ceremony. The true throne remained reserved for judgment, the king now embodying only the accuser. His face shone pale, and his lower lip bore a faint crack of dried blood, where he must have bitten it overnight. Jon advanced with Ghost pacing at heel, Sam 2 steps behind, clutching the wooden box of parchments. They halted at the appointed place on marbled flooring, directly between Septon podium and small council dais. The High Septon rose, jewels clicking. The council convenes to address matters of inheritance, fealty, and oath. Prince Jon of houses Targaryen and Stark made claim before the faith. The council now hears arguments of legitimacy desertion, and threat. Tywin inclined his head. We begin with the question of vows. His voice carried the weight of stone cracking. Lord Commander Snow, so he was named, swore lifelong service to the Night's Watch. By coming south without leave, he deserted. The penalty remains death, unless Tywin's eyes held steel. The crown pardons. Mace Tyrell puffed. Pardon? For proven treason? Oberyn's voice slid in like silk. A pardon seems fitting for a prince whose life was endangered by that very crown's former occupant, Robert Baratheon. He drummed fingers. But first, we must know whether the council accepts his birth. Tywin gestured. Pycelle's clerk shuffled forward with a sheaf. Copies of every scroll have been compared with Citadel seals. The Citadel confirms authenticity. I present acknowledgement letter from Archmaester Peristan. He read a preamble in droning tones, culminating in, therefore, we the conclave attest that Jon is issue of Prince Rhaegar and Lady Lyanna, born legally under the faith. A hush rippled. Joffrey's fingers clawed the chair, but Cersei laid a restraining hand atop his. Tywin's gaze swept the hall. Legitimacy stands. Desertion remains. Yet if the crown accepts his birth, he is no longer bound by false identity. Oaths taken under miscertainty warrant reconsideration. Cersei barked a bitter laugh. How convenient. One may discard vows the instant they weigh heavy. By that measure, any man may claim hidden parentage to escape consequences. Tyrion sipped his wine finally. True, sister. Yet we have not seen many conjured documents bearing all requisite seals. If your faith in the Citadel wavers, perhaps we dismiss every knighted son until we carve them open to prove their lineage. His smile was slight, mocking. Cersei's cheeks colored. Words gathered on her tongue. But Tywin's subtle cough cut her short. Varys folded hands within lavender sleeves. May we hear the prince's purpose? If he seeks no crown, the realm may find space in its heart and laws. If he does, his soft shrug spoke volumes. All eyes pivoted to Jon. He drew breath, feeling the hall's cold swirl of expectation. I seek to rally 7 kingdoms against the threat marching from the true north. Winter is not a story. I have seen whites rise from snow, blue eyes burning. Only unity will stand. But unity must rest on truth. I came south to write my name and to recruit armies, free of the watch strictures, to fight for the living. His voice carried, steady. Grant me pardon. I will ride north with banners and coin, not to seize thrones but to shield the realm. Mace Tyrell sniffed. The dead? I have heard such tales since boyhood. Yet I see no corpses on our roads. Oberyn interjected. I have seen much blood in my travels, Lord Mace. You have seen only vineyards. Let the prince finish. Jon continued. I swear by the old gods and the new that I do not now claim the Iron Throne. Should the realm name me heir, I would not shirk duty. But today, I ask only pardon, men, steel, and provisions. Joffrey rose, face flushed. And coin, no doubt. The bastard wants our coffers. He sneered at Jon. I ought send gold cloaks with you and laugh as you freeze. Jaime shifted, hand on sword hilt. The gesture was subtle, but the hall noticed. Joffrey scowled, sat. Tywin tapped desk. The crown possesses debts. War is costly. Yet denial of northern defense courts ruin. He steepled fingers. This council could grant conditional pardon. Prince Jon escorts South Thrawn observers to verify threat. If found exaggerating, his life is forfeit. Cersei's smile sharpened. I volunteer Sir Loras to observe, with 2,000 Tyrell spears. If dead men do not slaughter them, northern ice will. Mace sputtered protest. Tyrion shook his head. Send knights to freeze while King's Landing feasts? Better sense might prevail. He regarded Jon. How will you travel? The king cannot ferry whole armies midway through harvest. We begin with ravens, Jon said. And smaller forces. The wall requires aid sooner, not later. Melisandre, Pycelle coughed, beard trembling. The Night's Watch recently lost Lord Commander Snow. Now stands leaderless. Its vote looms. Perhaps the prince offers leadership still. A murmur spread. Jaime spoke for the first time, his voice cutting despite calm. The Watch would not elect one they deem oathbreaker. But if we, in King's name, declare absolution, they might accept him anew as Lord Commander. A compromise. Restore his station, supply him by royal decree. Let him wage the wall's defense without staking claim to crowns. Tywin's eyebrows rose, impressed. Cersei bristled. He nearly called us tyrants. True thorns, Jaime returned. We have weathered worse. Joffrey slammed fist. Enough chatter, I command heads. But again, no one moved. He looked small upon that lower chair. Tyrells murmured with each other. Varys whispered across to Oberyn. High Septon murmured prayer. Jon felt sweat trickle beneath collar. If my return to the Watch spares realm division, I accept. But recall, the wall cannot stand alone forever. Sooner or later, dragonfire and steel from the south must march north. Dragonfire indeed. Oberyn purred, eyes gleaming. Aunt Daenerys' hatchlings grow large. Reller's priests gossip in every port. Dragons and White Walkers. It seems old Valeria's curses descend at once. Tywin signaled silence. We table dragons until they cross narrow sea. Motion. Pardon Prince Jon of desertion. Restore him to command of the Night's Watch. Supply 6 months' stores and 1,000 men from volunteer levies, including representatives from each great house. Any opposed? Cersei's voice knifed through. I oppose. Mace Tyrell joined, albeit reluctantly. I too. Oberyn raised his hand. I vote aye. Varys inclined head. Aye. Tyrion, aye. With council split, eyes moved to Joffrey. The king smirked. The lion and rose object. The red viper and spider support. The dwarf sides with vipers. My word is final. No pardon. Escort the traitor to dungeon. Betty. Joan's hand dropped along Claw's pommel. Ghost leapt forward, growling thunderous. Jaime unsheathed sword, stepping before Jon with white cloak flaring. Chaos erupted. Kingsguard argued. Tyrell retainers shouted. Cersei's face went bloodless rage. Tywin rose, voice booming above din. Enough. The matter proceeds to Great Council. The boy king has spoken, yet realm must weigh dispute or fracture. He turned to Jon. Until decision, you are confined to Tower of the Hand. Honored guest. Ghost remains. Sir Jaime. Ziet done. Nemnin? Jon met Tywin's gaze, searching for trap. Found calculation inscrutable. He nodded once. Jaime led him along spiral stairs to the tower. Formerly Ned Stark's quarters. Memories etched in each lintel. Ghost inspected every corner before stretching on the bearskin rug. Jaime closed door. Set helm aside. You owe me truth. Jon untied tabard, easing onto a bench. Ask. Jaime paced. On the night King Aerys burned my father and brother, you were not yet born. But my king, the one I slew, swore to burn a city rather than surrender. If Rhaegar had won at the Trident, could he have stopped Aerys? Or would he have watched Dragonfire take thousands? You carry his blood. Tell me what Rhaegar truly was. Metrow. Jon weighed words. I never met him, but Arthur Dane's Squire Edric told stories at Starfall. Rhaegar studied prophecy, sang songs that made men weep. He believed the prince that was promised would save the world. When my mother carried me, perhaps he thought the prophecy fulfilled. Jon's throat tightened. I cannot defend a dead man's choices, but I know Ned Stark respected him enough to hide me. My father would not protect a monster's son. Jaime stopped. You believe prophecy drove men to madness? I believe fear does. and pride. Prophecies only mirror. Men see what they desire. A long silence. Jaime sheathed sword, stepped toward door. I will keep guards honest. Sleep if you can. He paused. For what it is worth, I hope the walkers are real. Court might forget crowns when dead ride. He left, shutting door with soft click. Hours passed, measured by distant bells and the slow transit of sunlight across rug. Tyrion visited near midday, bringing roast capon and a flagon of arbor red. You must eat, he urged. Great councils drag on like maesters' sermons. Jon swallowed a bite. Tyrells will turn council against me. Undoubtedly. They crave stability until Margaery is queen. Oberyn eyes vengeance. Father eyes survival. My sister eyes your head. Tyrion refilled Jon's cup. We need alternative leverage. Such as popular support. City smallfolk listen to songs. They yearn for heroes. A prince revealed and spurned by cruel king. Bards feast on that. Tyrion's grin held foxish mischief. I have hired 4 already. Tonight they play every tavern from Street of Flower to Pisswater Bend. Jon frowned. Songs feed mouths? Songs sway hearts. And hearts drag lords. Tyrion toasted invisible crowd. Also, I delivered copies of your parchments to the Iron Bank. Should something unfortunate happen, they will fund whoever avenges you. Fear gnaws more than love. Jon stared. You gamble with kingdoms. Always, Tyrion said, setting cup down. But never without odds. He rose. Rest. Tomorrow, council convenes in the Dragon Pit. A place once meant for dragons. How fitting. Dos demois. Night fell, thick and hot despite early spring. From the tower balcony, Jon watched lanterns bob along Rampart Walk, where crowds pressed against closed gates, hungry for rumor. Voices floated on warm air, chants already. White wolf and trueborn dragon, mingling, swelling, fading. Ghost huffed beside him. They call me dragon. Jon murmured, scratching behind the direwolf's ear. Do you fancy flying? Ghost yawned, unconcerned. A soft knock. Sansa slipped inside. Her auburn hair was braided with wolf head clasps. She glanced nervously at shadows. I bribed a guard with lemon cakes. She pulled 2 from her pocket, offered 1. Jon smiled despite exhaustion. Lemon cakes buy kingdoms. They buy passage. She peered at him, fear and pride warring. I wanted to see you before tomorrow. Mother would have worried for you, I think. Jon's smile faded. I carry father's hopes now. If council spares me, I return north. Winterfell is half ruin, she whispered. But if you march, I will ride with you. I have friends, Tyrell cousins willing to support northern restoration, if only to spite the lions. We could rebuild. Then? He touched her arm. Your place may remain here, to temper Joffrey's cruelty. She shook her head slowly. There is no tempering him. Margaery tries, yet he grows more vicious. When the city learns your truth, many will see him weaker. He'll lash out. I will not spend another moment bowing. Jon studied her eyes, steel beneath blue. Then ready yourself. North is colder than memory nowadays. They sat on bench, sharing silence and lemon cakes while the city moaned below like some vast, uneasy beast. Morning sun baked the dragon pit's crumbling dome, shining through jagged rents like spears of molten bronze. Once the lair of Valyrian titans, it now served as council chamber when intrigue demanded space wider than petty halls. Pigeons wheeled overhead, dislodged by visitors. Their droppings spattered the ancient flagstones among shards of dragon bone, half buried beneath weeds. Great desks formed semicircle facing a raised dais. Banners of the 7 kingdoms draped cracked walls, direwolf gray and stag black, lion crimson, rose green, sunhan spear, kraken gold, falcon blue, trident sea green. At the dais center stood a massive oaken table ringed with iron, symbol of pact forged during the dance. Upon it rested a single leather-bound tome, the sprawl of great council precedent. Spectators filled tiered seats carved into inner masonry. Lords' retinues, maesters, septons, captains, envoys from Bravos and Volantis. The murmuring mass sounded like surf crashing unseen shores. Jon entered flanked by Sir Roderick, summoned from guest Mans, after word reached of council, and by Jaime, armored in white enamel. Ghost stalked beside them, hackles bristling at the stench of so many strangers. High Septon opened with prayer. Mace Tyrell presented petition of treason and demanded execution. Oberyn countered with motion to legitimize and grant governorship of the North. Varys proposed conditional regency. Argument spiraled, each lord referencing ancient edicts. Near midday heat turned oppressive, sweat staining velvet collars. Cersei, fanning herself, called witness. Alezer Thorne, summoned South weeks prior to lobby for support against wildlings. Thorne strutted out, black cloak nudied, eyes gleaming malice. "I served the watch when this man deserted," he proclaimed. "He murdered brothers to consort with wildlings. He lies as easily as he breathes." Jon clenched fists but held his place. Thorne spun tales, Jon opening gates for raiders, betting enemies, plotting kingship beyond the wall. The crowd hissed. When Jon's turn came, he spoke of Mance, of the treaty, of the cost. He described Hardhome's slaughter, the white bear, the chill breath of ice spiders. Some scoffed, but more listened, horror creeping into faces. Tywin called Maester Aemon's letter read aloud. The blind maester's voice, copied in clerk's monotone, told of Jon's valor, integrity, of prophecy glimpsed in his birth. The hall grew quiet, reverent. At last, Tyrion rose. Words swirl like ravens after battle, but truth stands. If Prince Jon walks free, he may lead North's defense. If we kill him, the wall loses commander and realm loses chance for unity. We risk what, exactly? One more rival to a throne already contested by half a dozen names. The White Walkers care nothing for sigils. They kill lions, wolves, dragons alike. Aemon, he paused, sweeping gaze across lords. Balon Greyjoys claim flounders and fish guts. Stannis sits in snow on Dragonstone. Renly lies in grave. Let us not add Prince Jon to the list of men we murdered only to wish alive later. Joffrey spat audible curse, but held tongue under Tywin's glare. The High Septon conferred with scribes, voices low. He stepped forward. Council must vote. Life or death, pardon or exile. Bayani? Scrolls were passed, quills scratched. Jon breathed slow, ghost steady against his thigh. When tallies finished, the Septon unrolled parchment. 83 in favor of pardon and restoration. 79 against. 4 abstain. Breath left the hall in ragged collective exhale. Cersei sprang up. Lies, recount. But Tywin stood, face unreadable. The vote is law. The Septon raised parchment. By will of this great council, Jon of Houses Targaryen and Stark is absolved of desertion, restored to the Night's Watch with rank of Lord Commander, granted 6 months' stores, coin stipend of 20,000 gold dragons, and escort of 1,000 mixed levies to answer northern threat. Effective immediate. Cheering erupted among northern and riverland spectators. Dissenters shouted. Hammers beat shields. Ghost howled, voice rolling through dome like ancient dragon roar. Jaime laid hand on Jon's shoulder. Take your victory before they think again. Outside Dragon Pit, sky broke open with sudden rain, quenching dust, streaking banners dark. Jon and his small party mounted horses in courtyard. Sam rode a plump gelding. Sansa, clad in hooded cloak, guided chestnut mare. Tyrion approached, water dripping from his nose. Father claims victory, he said. He spares your head, keeps you from throne, and mends rift with North at fraction of war's cost. Yet Cersei will not forget. He pressed a small purse into Jon's hand. A modest loan. Interest optional. Pay me in stories when dead or vanquished. Jon smiled faintly. You have my word. Tyrion stepped back. I look terrible behind a sword, but if winter reaches King's Landing, send me Raven. He bowed. Oberyn Martell arrived astride sleek black courser. The North will find Dornish spears useful, he said. Send word. I tire of court shadows. Thank you, Prince. Call me Oberyn. And bring back heads of White Walkers. I would pickle them for Cersei's wedding gift. He wheeled off, cloak whipping. Jon swung onto his gray rein. The escort assembled. Sigils patchwork. Manderly trident, Blackwood dead Weirwood, even half-hearted Lannister detachment under Sir Adam Marbre. They looked ill-matched, but for now, united. Sansa reigned beside Jon. I will ride to White Harbor, help Lady Willa train women for winter's siege. Then to Winterfell. Jon nodded. Write me from each holdfast. She squeezed his gloved hand before spurring forward to take place among wagons. Sam edged close. I've never commanded anything greater than a soup line. You'll command ravens, Jon replied. Rain plastered his hair. The wall must scream south until the world believes. He turned in saddle, searching the battlements. High above, Jaime stood beneath arch, white cloak sodden, sword raised in salute. Jon raised clenched fist. The gates yawned open. Hooves clattered across cobbles, echoing off wet stone. Small folk pressed under eaves watched with wary hope as the procession snaked through the city. Some called blessings, some jeered, but many knelt as ghosts trotted past, as though glimpsing luck in white fur. Past Mud Gate, the King's Road stretched north beneath weeping sky. Jon felt weight settle, not of chains but of charge. Behind him, dragons slept. Before him, dead marched. Between, men waited to decide which would rule their hearts. He nudged Rain to brisk trot. To the wall, he murmured. Ghost bounded ahead. A ghost indeed, in the gray rain, leading them into the long road where stories melted into struggle, and 500 miles of bleak earth rose like an anvil before the hammer of winter. 3 days out, the rain ceased, but chill deepened. Dawn bleached the world, bone white with frost. Camp pitched beside the ruined septry of Stony Sept's outer field. Jon woke early, stride crunching hoarfrost, to find Sansa tending small fire. Mormont's raven, freed from its cage at Sam's urging, hopped near her boots, croaking snow, snow with each tilt of its glossy black head. She smiled at Jon's bemused look. He likes burnt crumbs, she said, feeding the bird a scrap. He also says, King, often. Jon crouched. Traitorous bird. Might be prophetic. She reached into her satchel. Maester Luwin once taught me cipher wheels. I drafted letters for each lord. Pledge grain now. Earn tax remission later. Sign with Wolf Dragon seal. She handed pages. You may use them. Jon scanned the neat writing, impressed. Father would be proud. Sansa stared at curls of smoke. Father would be alive if not for lies. Let us end their reign. Footfalls crunched. Sir Roderick approached, gray whiskers bristling against cold. Scouts returned. Band of brave companions trails us. 50 swords, perhaps hired to kidnap you. Jon rose. Company morale wanes without plunder. They'll attack at dusk. Roderick nodded. I suggest we set ambush at the old toll bridge ahead. Jon called council of captains. Manderly, Blackwood, Marbre and Teal. Maps unfurled upon overturned crate. They plotted positions. Archers along ridge. Cavalry hidden beneath willows. Orders issued, camp dismantled. By afternoon, sun red as forge coal sank behind leafless trees. Frost melted into shroud of mist curling across grasses. Jon and 20 rangers waited crouched among reeds near bridge piles. Ghost lay prone, muscles quivering. The first sellswords appeared, ragged but confident, armor mismatched. Their banner, a yellow skull with coin eyes, drooped in damp air. They advanced onto bridge, hooves clattering. Jon whispered. Archers loosed. Arrows hissed, striking leader square through mail. Chaos snapped. Sellswords wheeled, only to face spears erupting from mist behind. Manderly pikes punched horses, Blackwood longbows felled fleeing foot. Ghost launched, tearing into a man who raised axe toward Jon. Amid melee, Jon found himself face-to-face with a scarred Taroshi wielding curved blade. Steel rang. Jon parried, riposted, slipped inside guard with fluid cut down thigh. The sellsword stumbled. Jon struck pommel to temple, dropping him. Minutes later, silence returned, broken only by groans. 23 captives knelt bound. Jon strode along their line. You rode for gold. Ride now for honor. Join us north or ride south one by one unarmed. He gestured to open road. Some spat, but most met his eyes. Seeing resolve like granite, 12 chose to follow. The rest were stripped, horses seized, sent south afoot under threat of Ghost's fangs. Roderick clean blade. Mercy's edge too beaufold, my lord. Longer winter, we need every sword, Jon replied, wiping Longclaw. He looked north. Storm clouds brewed. The wall beyond horizon unseen yet felt, like gear turning in world's marrow. Ravens flew daily from Maester Sam, now drafting missives aboard supply wagon turned rolling rookery. Reports trickled. White Harbor mustered schooners to ferry grain. Lady Mage Mormont pledged every bear-cloaked warrior. Queen Regent Cersei penned demands that Jon deliver captured widlings for slave labor. Letter Jon burn. At Maidenpool, Lord Tarley intercepted march with 600 Crownland soldiers. He bore King's edict, rescinding escort and reducing supplies. Tarley's stern jaw acknowledged no debate. Jon invited him to parley in view of his mixed levies. Northern grim-faced, Crownlanders exhausted, sellswords on edge. Tarley produced seal. Jon produced High Septon's parchment superseding edicts in times of external threat. Law argued, law.bex. Tarley's loyalty to Crown wavered against memory of whispering White Walkers across midnight campfires, stories from men who had fought at the fist. At dawn he relented, giving half his men to Jon's forces, half returning south with message. The Crown reneges at peril. The march quickened thereafter. Snow fell thinly beyond the neck, dusting yellow grasses. Crannogmen guided convoy through secret causeways. One night their leader, a wiry Reedslem woman, approached Jon's fire. Father says the night's watch must not fall, she murmured, eyes reflecting sparks. Hay sends gift. She handed satchel of translucent pale blue blades, dragon glass arrowheads, chipped to wicked points. Forge them to shafts. They bite the others. Jon accepted with thanks, heart swelling. Tell Lord Howland his sister's son remembers. She smiled, a ghost of Lyanna in her mouth, vanishing into reeds without sound. At Moat Caelan's Mashietan towers, they paused to regroup. From ramparts, Jon surveyed endless tundra stretching north. Columns of black smoke smudged sky far off. Wildling fires, perhaps, or raiders burning holdfasts. He felt a pulling ache, as though some invisible cord tied his ribs to those distant plumes. Sir Roderick joined. Maester Sam says Melisandre arrived at Castle Black with Stannis' fleet. They hold Eastwatch too. Raelor priests burn nightly pyres. Jon clenched gloved hand around stone parapet. Stannis would see Crown before duty. Our alliance teeters. Now, Roderick's one eye warmed. Then you must command hearts, not titles. Stannis respects law, but more, he respects courage. Present him truth, and he may follow. Or clash, Jon mused. Steel may ring, Roderick admitted, but better to ring against each other now than shatter before winter's hammers. Jon inhaled scents of peat, distant pine, salt carried from east. Ride at dawn, he said. The wall awaits. 7 days later, columns crested the ridge south of Castle Black, sun setting behind walls. 70-foot ice rampart blazing with red gold fire. Wind knifed their faces. Snow whirled thinly like frozen sparks. Jon halted, awe-stilling breath. Memories flooded. Ragged recruits training in courtyard. Maester Aemon's gentle laughter. Jorah Mormont's steady command. He grit his eyes dark under torchlight in shimmering caves. He had left believing himself exile. He returned a prince beneath twin sigils. Horns sounded atop battlements. 3 long blasts unfamiliar for living men. Gates groaned open. Brothers in black-lined walkway, lanterns held high. At their forefront stood Stannis Baratheon, royal cloak of black and red swept back. A stag crowned by flaming heart emblazoned on breastplate. Melisandre flanked him, crimson eyes bright as coals. Beside them, principal brothers. Edison Tollet, grim, Dolorous Ed. Jon dismounted. Ghost bounded ahead, barking greeting half-snarl at Melisandre. The Red Woman smiled thinly, whispering something in tongue unknown. Ghost growled lower. Stannis descended steps. "Lord Snow," he said, voice hoarse from wind. "Or must I say Prince Targaryen? Word travels on cold wings." Jon bowed slight. "Titles later, your grace." "The Dead March." Stannis' jaw flexed. "Hey, they do. My scouts sighted white giants near the Frostfangs. I marched from Eastwatch with 2,000. You bring?" "Nearly 2,000 more. Provisions for months, fresh forges for spear points." Jon glanced at brothers. "And arrows tipped with dragon glass." Melisandre's eyes glinted. "Azor Ahai draws nearer." Stannis ignored her. "The wall stands at war. Command is fragmented. Cotter Pike wants retreat to Eastwatch. Bowen Marsh whines of food. Thorn preaches gallows for wildlings. We meet in council at once." "That's true?" Jon nodded. "First, we secure my men. Wintertown barns hold grain." Stannis gestured. "Nightfall soon. Move them." He pivoted, ascending to keep. Jon turned to his escort captains. "Quartermasters, join Bowen." They saluted, dispersing into swirl of snow. Sam trudged up, breathing clouds. "Home again." "Home changed," Jon replied. They followed Stannis inside. The hall was cold, torches guttering in drafts. A map of the gift lay across trestle table, stones marking armies, X's marking reported Walker sightings. Cotter Pike, Bowen Marsh, Slint, now scowling steward, and handful of northern lords ringed table. Debate erupted quick. Pike decried southern stragglers clogging stores. Bowen insisted wildlings remain penned. Stannis slammed gauntlet on table. "Enough. Survival first." Jon stepped forward. "Agreed." Eyes swung. Bowen sneered. "Deserter returns a prince." "I returned Lord Commander," Jon corrected. He produced Great Council Edict, wax intact. "By realm's order, I resume command." Marsh's jaw worked. He read seal, deflating. Cotter Pike snorted. "Fine. Command us, Prince." Jon surveyed hall, cold faces, scared faces, hopeful. "First, all food stores combine. South brought grain. No hunger this winter. Second, wildlings become our allies. Every able-bodied man or woman stands watch on wall. In return, their children shelter south. Third, Stannis Knights join our patrols. Distance breeds distrust. Shared cold breeds kinship." Murmurs, some dissent. Stannis folded arms. "Agreed." Pike grunted assent. Bowen hesitated, then nodded. Jon exhaled. "Fourth, we ride tomorrow beyond the wall. Small ranging to Parley with Mance Raider or successor. White Walkers threaten them too." Stannis' eyes sharpened. "I require proof the king beyond the wall still lives. I hanged him." "No," Jon said quietly. "You hanged Rattleshirt glamored by Red Woman. Mance is alive, disguised." Heads whipped toward Melisandre. She smiled, unashamed. The Lord of Light needed the bones of a king to waken stone dragons. Deception served flame. Stannis' mouth hardened. "You presume much." "I serve Azor Ahai," she murmured. Jon felt ire flare. "Truth has been my path. Lies no more. Mance rides with Tormund, north of Frostfangs last I heard. I will find him." Stannis studied Jon. "I ride with you." Melisandre placed hand on his arm. "Your grace, prophecy." He shook her off. "Prophecy can wait. Steel cannot." He looked to Jon. We leave dawn with 100 horse, 50 free folk scouts. Jon nodded, meeting his gaze. For first time he saw something like respect glimmer in Stannis' hard eyes. That night, Jon walked the wall's top alone. Wind howled, mist spindled across infinite dark. Far below, torches sprinkled like fallen constellations marking new arrived camps. Ghost padded silent. He gazed north, pitch black, no moon. Somewhere in that void marched army of dead, frost-encrusted swords clutched in bone hands. He touched Longclaw's hilt, felt warmth of pelt guards. Soft steps approached. Sam Cloak whipped. "I can't sleep," he said. "Too much. Everything." Jon smiled wearily. "Nor can I." Sam leaned on Crennel Gap, staring into night. "If we survive, what then? Thrones again? Walls first, crowns later," Jon murmured. "If I claim nothing, perhaps sister in the south will. Or Daenerys. But maybe, after the storm, realm no longer needs iron thrones." Sam hugged himself against cold. "One can hope." They stood long in silence, wind singing mournful. At last Jon spoke. "Tomorrow we ride, Sam. Hold the wall. Send ravens. No matter what." Sam swallowed. "I will." Jon clasped his shoulder, then turned, descending stairs back into warm lamplight of keep. Below, brothers prepared, sharpening blades, fitting fletchings to dragonglass shafts, lighting candles to seven, and to old gods in silent glades. A hush lay over Castle Black, not fear alone but anticipation. Like string drawn taut before release. Jon entered armory, alone, save apprentice hammering rivets. He removed tabard, donned black breastplate newly etched with twin sigils entwined, burnished until dragon and wolf shimmered beneath forge glow. He slid Valyrian steel sword into scabbard, settled cloak across shoulders, one half direwolf gray, other half dragon blackshot with red thread. It felt heavy and right. He looked into tarnished mirror, propped against wall. A face looked back, pale, scarred, eyes harder than youth, framed by dark hair tousled. Not bastard, not prince, both. And beyond those titles, a guardian. He extinguished brazier, stepped into corridor where Ghost awaited, eyes catching lamplight. Together they went to find Stannis, to plan dawn's ride. Beyond stone and ice, night deepened, swallowing stars. Somewhere, unseen, cold horns blew in ancient cadence, but fires burnt on the wall. Men stood ready, and a wolf dragon strode at their head into the darkness, no longer alone. Snowflakes drifted in slow, deliberate spirals through the torchlit courtyard, glittering like slivers of shattered glass before melting on black stone. The stillness of pre-dawn felt unnatural, too complete. Like the world had paused its turning so it might witness whatever took shape this morning. Jon stamped a heel to check the fit of his new graves, breath clouding in the air, and waited while the Night's Watch standard, a field of onyx stitched with streaks of silver, was lashed to a lance and handed up to a ranger. Beyond the walls, darkness lay over the forest in vast, silent folds that rustled only when the wind rose. Stannis appeared from the shadows near the armory door. His eyes were hollows of restless exhaustion, but his armor gleamed, and the stag and heart sigil at his chest had been burnished bright. Melisandre walked behind him, crimson skirts sweeping the rime-crusted flagstones. Even her breath came out white, though it was said fire danced beneath her skin. Squires brought Lord Stannis' horse, a rangy dappled gray, and the Red Woman whispered some blessing to it that steamed on the air. She called the creature by its high Valyrian name, one that meant light's promise. Jon did not know if the stallion understood prophecy. It only flicked one ear as a groom tightened the girth. Jon swung into the saddle of rain and turned to study the faces assembling in the dim blue half-light. Stannis knights in their blackened armor, stiff and proud. The Watch brothers in patched leathers, some barely shaving, some gray as cinder. A scattering of free folk hunters garbed in wolfskins, eyes bright with suspicion and curiosity. Tormund Giantsbane lounged near the gate in a cloak of bearskin so massive it gathered snow like a roof. He spit to one side when he saw Jon looking and offered a gap-toothed grin. About bloody time, he muttered through his beard. Cold enough to freeze a mammoth stones out here. Bowen Marsh stood at the top of the wooden staircase leading to the battlements, cloak wound tight, the expression carved into his soft cheeks unmistakably sour. His disapproval did not matter this morning. Nothing Marsh might say could alter the simple truth that in less than an hour, 2,000 men of every banner were marching into a killing winter under Jon's command. The notion set Jon's stomach to a slow churn, but it also felt strangely right, like stepping into a garment tailored in secret over the course of years. When the column was ready, Stannis nudged his horse forward, jaw clenched harder than the ice on the ramparts. He did not speak. No rousing declarations thundered across the courtyard. Instead, he raised a mailed hand, and the heavy gates groaned open on chains, spilling a tongue of torchlight onto virgin snow. An answering sound rippled through the ranks, armor creaking, horses whickering, the low rustle of cloaks. Then silence again. Jon tightened his gloves, clicked to rein, and followed Stannis into the thin dark. Behind him, hooves and boot heels crushed the thin sheet of powder. Overhead, a horn gave one deep note, a watcher's farewell, and echoed outward across Frostfang valleys before fading among the pines. When the sound died, the only heartbeat left was the slow, steady crunch of their march. They kept a hard pace at the outset, eager to put distance between themselves and Castle Black before the sun's first red edge rose over the horizon. North of the wall, the land undulated in gray dunes of drift. Dead pines reached up like bones and snapped in the cold. They forded 3 half-frozen streams, horses slipping on the brittle ice sheets. A soldier from House fell plunged through to his thigh and cursed so loudly his voice chased ravens from the trees. By mid-morning, the sky had turned to dull pewter, and the wind came in from the west, calling up a curtain of snowflakes so dense it swallowed the world beyond 20 paces. Visibility fell to nothing. Jon could see the next rider and little else, a blur of moving shapes, black upon white. The cold grew teeth and bit at every seam in his cloak. Yet they pressed on. Tormund rode a squat Garen at Jon's left shoulder. A huge bow lashed across his back, a great axe at one hip. "Fool's weather," he called over the gusts. "The snow spirits play us, Crow Prince. They want us blind so the thin men can pick who they fancy." Now, Jon had no reply, but a nod. Ghosts slunk ahead, a pale mirage in the swirl, nearly indistinguishable from the ground itself. The direwolf moved like smoke, padding effortless through drifts that dragged at men's boots. When he felt them losing the path, he circled back, muzzle dusted white, and pressed forward again until they caught the scent of his confidence. After several leagues, the storm slackened. They found themselves on a northern ridge, the forest behind, an endless plain of humped white in front. The sky parted enough to smear sunlight across the snow, and for one heartbeat the world glittered. Diamonds flung by a careless giant. It was heartbreakingly beautiful, but no one mistook it for safety. Jon raised an arm and signaled a halt. The column bunched. He rode down the line until rangers gathered around a broken stand of still green firs and signaled archers to rest. Eat. Stannis dismounted only long enough to study the horizon with a soldier's narrowed frown. How far to the Valley of Then? Tormund scratched his beard. 2 days, if the storm gods keep their bellies quiet. 1.5 if we press. Bam? We press, Stannis decided. Jon knelt to check the new dragonglass arrowheads stored in his quiver. They glinted subtle rainbow hues. He traced one bead of color with a fingertip, reminded of the promise buried within every shard. Death for creatures who had forgotten what death felt like. Sam eased down beside him, shivering despite his layers. He'd insisted on accompanying the ranging to tend the ravens and record the parley if they found Mance. His cheeks held the bruising marks of wind. I've never seen so many different men riding in the same line. It's strange, but hopeful too. Hopeful is fragile out here, Jon said. Keep your quills dry and your bow closer than parchment. From somewhere up the slope, Melisandre began to sing. It was not a tune Jon recognized, a thrumming rise and fall. Low at first, then swelling into a minor key chant that set the hairs on his arms upright. Between verses, her voice wove the syllables of an older language, something older even than Valyrian. The wind seemed to hush to hear her. Snow hissed softly against the lips of every helm. In the glow of a single torch she'd planted upright, the ruby at her throat pulsed in time to her cadence. Some of the Black brothers glanced at one another, uneasy. One of the free folk women muttered a warding charm under her breath. Stannis watched the Red Priestess with an expression of begrudging faith. He did not join in, but neither did he stop her. When she finished, the plain seemed to grow abruptly darker, as though some light source had been snuffed despite the lingering sun. Jon did not know if it was magic or the mind. Either way, Melisandre's pale eyes found him across the snowy ground. She dipped her head in something like approval, lips curved, then turned away. Late that afternoon, the scouts returned. They brought news of a cavern system 10 miles ahead, accessible through a slit in a cliff face that looked like an old wound in the stone. No foot traffic, no fires. Safe enough to shelter in. Stannis gave the order, and they reached the place well past sundown after a long grinding push through waist-deep powder. The cavern entrance was just wide enough for 2 horses abreast. Inside, the rock opened into a buttery hollow big enough to hold half their force. The rest would camp outside, ringed by watchfires. Jon's gaze swept the mouth, measured the vantage points. He assigned Tormund to oversee the outer pickets, with a mix of free folk and experienced rangers. Stannis claimed the cave's highest shelf for his commanders. Quiet orders rippled. Cook pots clanged. Soon the smell of oats and salt beef battled the icy reek swirling in through the cave mouth. Jon crouched near a ring of stones where a watch brother coaxed flame from kindling. The sparks leaped, then died, too damp. He added dry chips from a sack. When the fire finally caught, warmth crawled toward them on cautious feet, expanding with a hiss and crackle. Jon held his gloved hands to it and closed his eyes, willing the stiffness from his muscles, listening to the low murmur of 2,000 men settling. The sound pulsed like the heartbeat of something colossal. Ed Tollett joined him, face long and glum. "If we make it back, remind me to thank you for the death march, Lord Commander. A proper suffering. The 7 will be thrilled." Jon cracked a smile. "I'll carve thanks on your tombstone." He glanced around. Whispered conversation drifted among the rocks, weaving threads of disparate languages. The old tongue, the common, guttural Norvoshi, curses from a handful of sellswords, and Melisandre's smooth Valyrian, somewhere deeper in the cave. At last Jon rose and made his way toward the back recess where Stannis had set his command. A single brazier glowed with charcoal embers. Stannis bent over a leather map stretched flat on a slab of rock, fingers tracing ridgelines. He did not look up as Jon approached. "The scouts say the Valley of Then sits heavy with smoke," Jon reported. "We burned no watch posts on the march. Mance might already know we're coming." "Let him," Stannis grunted. "We march more slowly than birds, but we march. What worries me is food. We brought stores for 1 moon's pass. If Mance does not join us, these wildlings will empty our coffers like locusts." "He'll join," Jon said with more faith than he felt. "If we reach him in time." Stannis turned his head, studied Jon's face in the smoky gloom. "You gamble much on a man who raided your lands from birth." "He raided for freedom, not conquest." "Freedom is a soft word." "It matters," Jon said. Stannis made no answer, but he pushed a carved ivory wolf sigil across the map until it sat astride the Then Valley symbol. "One dawn then," he said. "See the men fed before first light." Jon bowed and stepped back. On his way out he nearly collided with Melisandre, her face half lit by the brazier's red glow. "The dance quickens," she murmured, catching his sleeve. "I saw a lone wolf, leading an army of shadows in the flames. The wolf's eyes shone like stars." "No." Jon met her gaze, weary. "Dreams do not fight for us." "No," she agreed. "But they warn. The army of shadows grows." She leaned closer. Her breath smelled of spiced wine. "When ice meets fire in this valley, "Choose fire, Jon Snow." She let go and glided past. Jon rubbed the sleeve as though washing off ash, then headed back toward his fire. Much later, after the camp quieted and the last echoes of steel on stone died down, he unrolled his bedroll near Ghost, anchored his sword within easy reach, and forced himself to close his eyes. Images flickered. The wall's icy profile against the pink dawn sky, Sansa's determined smile in Wintertown, Sam hunched over parchment, Tyrion's sardonic toast beneath falling snow. Then the visions shifted, turned stranger. A white field under a black sun. Riders of ice glass galloping, a blue gaze pinning him with bottomless hatred, while a whispering wind sounded very like Melisandre's chant. He woke before the watch bell rang. The cave was eerily silent. Ghost had risen, hackles stiff, staring at the entrance. Jon sat up, palm gripping Longclaw's hilt even before full waking thought returned. At first he heard nothing. Then faint, like a memory, came a scrape. Metal on stone, and beneath it, a creak of leather, the hiss of breath. He crossed to the mouth, shoulders brushing the cold rock, and saw shapes at the edge of shadow. Figures moving between collapsed boulders that formed the approach. They were too tall to be rangers. No torchlight flickered among them, yet something about them glowed faintly, like frost luminescing under starlight. Jon's heartbeat thudded. He dropped to one knee behind a broken pillar and signaled to the nearest sentry. A young black brother nodding off against his spear. The boy's eyes flew wide. "Muster," Jon whispered. The boy scrambled away, feet slapping. Jon unslung his bow, nocked a dragonglass arrow. He drew, sighted down the black shaft, through the swirling snow. The intruders advanced soundlessly until the swirling flakes parted, and he saw their faces. White safer veins of pale blue branching under translucent skin. The eyes were sapphires burning cold. The others. There were 6 of them, and behind, a shambling line of corpses, wildling dead or perhaps deserters, moving single file where the lead White Walker's spear parted the snow. Ice trailed the blade. Jon loosed the arrow. It hissed through the storm, struck the first walker in the collar. Black stone erupted to smoke. The creature shattered into shards like splintering crystal, a shriek like splitting ice ripping the silence. The whites behind faltered but did not halt. The remaining 5 turned their empty eyes toward the cave entrance, as if noting a sudden itch. Chaos burst behind Jon. Shouts as sentries scrambled, horns shrilling wake up, steel rasping from sheaths. Rangers poured from the cave and outer camps, half-armored, belting on swords, notched sleep still crusting eyes. Stannis stalked from the cavern, blade in hand, voice booming orders. Melisandre emerged after him, arms raised, singing. The first wave of whites crashed like a rotten tide on the ring of fire pits, but the logs were not yet fully caught and the undead surged through gaps. A Night's Watch ranger screamed as a skeletal hand hooked a claw into his cheek, tearing flesh. Arrows hissed from men perched on boulders, many bounced useless off frozen flesh. Jon loosed again and again. Each dragonglass head that found an other exploded it to shards. The whites within 10 yards dropping limp, but their numbers were more than the 15 arrows he carried. "Spears!" Jon yelled. "Fire the trenches!" The oil-soaked rope lines they had strung as perimeter earlier night flickered, then roared up. Flames danced in the gust, throwing insane shadows across the snow. Stannis led a charge of mounted knights west of the mouth. His stallion reared, hooves crushing 2 whites before him. A walker thrust a spear of ice, fissures crackling across its length in lethal beauty. Stannis leaned aside, hacked downward, but Valyrian steel bit no living muscle. The blade caught, jarred from his grip. He cursed, drew a shorter dirk. Jon saw it unfolding and spurred rain downhill, Ghost loping ahead. The direwolf leapt, jaws clamping a walker's leg. Frost smoke burst where teeth punctured. The walker whirled, blade flashing. But Jon was there, long claw arcing in 2-handed stroke. The Valyrian steel sheared through the shimmering breastplate of ice. The walker fractured into a sculpture of winter, limbs flying apart, and both the spear and its body melted to powder at Jon's feet. Ghost shook frost shards from his muzzle, hackles bristling with sizzling energy. Tormund barreled into view, axe humming. He and two free folk archers carved a line through corpses and reached Stannis. "Quit gawping, South King," Tormund bellowed. "Swing!" Stannis retrieved his fallen blade, face red from cold and rage. He decapitated a reeling corpse that still bore the remains of a gold cloak uniform. These creatures were men. He called to Jon. "We burn the bodies after. If we're alive." Jon raked his view. More whites clambered over boulders to his right. Two white walkers stalked behind, each wielding ice swords. No more dragonglass arrows. He dismounted, signaled Sam to toss the spare satchel of shards. Sam fumbled, but obeyed. Jon caught it, handed a fistful to Tormund's archers. "Glass tips only," he barked. The ground had become treacherous, blood freezing to pink ice, limbs slick beneath boots. Jon slipped, caught himself, slashed at a white whose skull carried half a night's watch helmet mashed into bone. The thing toppled. He did not watch it fall. A horn blast, 2 notes, rang out, the signal for cavalry reinforcements. From the south ridge thundered a wedge of northern riders under Lady Mage Mormont's daughter Lyanna, who had pushed hard to catch them after being delayed at the neck. The she-bear's namesake flew on a black destrier, hair whipping like a winter's banner. Her riders crashed into the flank of the undead line, maces caving rotten ribs, torches spearing like mini suns. Fires on sticks. It was brutal, chaotic. Jon found himself back to back with Stannis amid a churning knot of whites. Longclaw sang. The king's blade roared. Bones cracked where steel kissed. Ghost darted like lightning, dragging things down. In fleeting glimpses of peripheral vision, Jon saw archers lighting arrowheads, free folk slinging slingshots with dragonglass shards. Melisandre stood on an outcrop, arms aloft, chanting louder. Heat seemed to radiate from her like midday sun. The ruby at her throat shone bright, carving the storm into red ribbons. Then, as Jon watched, a gout of flame erupted on the snow before her. No oil, no spark, just sudden roaring fire that leapt in a ring, engulfing 3 walkers. They shrieked with voices like cracking ice. One lurched free, body melting, but the heat alone finished it, leaving only steam and shards. Later, when he tried to recall, Jon could not remember how long the battle lasted. 10 minutes or an hour. Time warped in the cold. But eventually, the white walkers lay shattered crystals across the slope, and the whites had grown still, their necromantic thread severed. Silence flopped down, smothering all but the moans of wounded. Jon bent over, hands on his knees, lungs aflame. A thin layer of ice clung to his eyebrows. Beside him, Stannis breathed like a bellows, blade still in hand. Snowflakes drifted down again, gentle as feathers in the aftermath. The ground looked like a painter's canvas rinsed in gray and red. Sam stumbled across the field with a bundle of scrolls clutched ridiculously under one arm. I recorded casualty counts," he stammered, eyes wide saucers. 14 dead, 5 more frost wounded. Tormund says we still have 500 arrows unspent. Jon nodded absently, scanning. Melisandre walked the field barefoot, crimson dress billowing. Wherever she stepped, the snow melted around her toes, exposing dark soil. She paused over each fallen watchbrother and murmured a soft prayer. At dawn, they built a pyre. It took twice the usual fuel to set white remains ablaze. The corpses burnt with a foul stink, oily black smoke rolling into the iron-gray sky. Stannis read words from a page, voice brittle with cold. Jon offered a moment of still silence, then glimpsed Tormund wiping moisture from his beard-matted face. Later, they tallied their supplies. 2 casks of oil remained. The men ate little. Battle-turned stomachs, but drank heavily of thin ale rations. Jon foreboded intoxication beyond 1 cup. He walked the perimeter, praising those who had stood firm, offering a griped thank you to Thorne who, though still bitter, had fought savagely with a dragonglass dagger Jon himself had thrust into his palm. By noontide, scouts reported faint horn blasts on the east flank, wildland code, Tormund brightened. Mance, he guessed. Jon ordered a unit to ride in greeting. Tormund, Bowen Marsh, 2 Mormont riders, and himself. Stannis wished to join, but the slope was too rough for his heavy warhorse. After brief argument he relented, sending his standard-bearer, and 4 of his knights in his stead. The meeting occurred in a stand of ice-logged weirwood saplings that looked like frozen ghosts. Mance Rayder sat bareheaded upon a tall garron, ragged black cloak trimmed in white wolf fur dotty. His cheeks were gaunt, but his eyes still had that spark of mischief Jon remembered. Behind him shimmered ranks of free folk. Giants astride mammoths, skin-changers wearing owl feathers, spearwives with children in tow. At least 5,000 souls, battered but alive. Jon rode forward. The air felt sharper than any blade. "So, they didn't string you up after all," Mance said lightly. "My bones shivered every night wondering." "Didn't string you either," Jon answered. "Though you look colder. Fire warms." The king beyond the wall glanced past Jon to the arriving Baratheon banners. His mouth twisted. "So you convinced the Southern King to trade his crown for an overcoat?" "No crowns today," Jon said. "Only survival." Mance studied his face. "That tabard suits you. Snow. Wolf and dragon. Has a song's lilt." Jon reined a stride nearer, lowering his voice. "Last night, the others struck. We shattered 6 of their knights, lost 14. They will return with more. March south with me, Mance. Bring your people through the wall. Swear loyalty to your own kin on this side. Fight! And what bargain for those who kneel?" Mance's eyes glittered. "They kneel to no iron throne," Jon said. "Only to the living. They take land south of the gift for farms and grazing. They stand watch on the wall alongside black brothers. They keep their chieftains. They feed their hungry with our grain. And the kneeler king?" "Stannis," he agrees. Jon lifted a scroll sealed in black wax. "Signed this morning. He needs fighters. He offers justice." Mance turned the garron, measuring the scope of his people behind. Some had overheard, faces wary. A giant with broken tusk snorted steam. A spearwife with blood-crusted bandage watched with hawk's gaze. Tormund rumbled a low laugh. "Hey, Raider, the boy's got steel. I say we test his mettle." Bowen Marsh bristled. "You want to test on our side of the wall?" "Peace," Jon murmured. He addressed Mance. "The enemy that killed your followers at Hardhome is coming. If we fight apart, we lose. If together, maybe we hold." Slowly Mance nodded. "Show me this scroll." Jon passed it. The king beyond broke the seal, scanned. His brow furrowed, but Jon watched a spark of hope kindle at the edges of those hard lines. Mance gave the document to a tall spearwife behind him. "Tell our people. Ready to move." He eyed Jon. "But I will not kneel to Stannis. I'll give my word to you. That must do." "It will," Jon said. They clasped forearms. One raised bastard prince, one crowned wildling king, and the tremor that ran through both could have been cold, or awe, or simply the weight of worlds arriving. By sunset, the combined army rolled south. Thousands of free folk ringed by a cordon of Baratheon knights, watch rangers, and northern levies. Children rode in wagons drawn by rangy elk. Giants plodded behind, each step sending miniature avalanches from the drifts. Mammoths snorted plumes that looked like chimney smoke. The march back to the wall felt different than their departure. Not a retreat, no, but a gathering. As if every footfall hammered home a new alliance into being. Jon rode near the center, Stannis on one side and Mance on the other. The two kings did not speak often, but when they did, the words were civil. Tormund cracked bawdy jokes that even stiff southern knights eventually answered with grins. Sam recorded it all, quill scratching like winter mice across parchment. They camped, the first night, under clear skies spangled with fierce stars. The biting wind had calmed. Even so, dozens of small fires dotted the slope, each ringed by a patchwork of culture. Baratheon soldiers trading salted pork for the free folks' pickled kelp, Giants nursing barrels of sour goat's milk. Black brothers quietly stitching cloaks for wildling orphans who had none. Jon walked between the fires, pausing when asked to mediate disputes. A Mole-town recruit suspicious of a spearwife's rune carvings. A northern stable boy worried the giants would eat all the oats. Each time Jon found a solution. Not perfect, only enough. It was amazing how enough could feel when done with courtesy and firmness. Near midnight he found Stannis alone at the edge of camp, studying the stars. "I remember them shining like this the night before my first battle," the king said. "You think you know fear until you see those fires above, and realize how indifferent they are." He glanced at Jon. "I read the histories of Aegon's conquest. Even dragons are small beneath the sky." Jon folded arms. "We stand smaller still." Stannis snorted, wiped frost from his beard. "Yet, we stand." Then to Jon's surprise, "Well fought today." He offered no more, but Jon felt the weight of it. An accolade grudging, but real. They held each other's gaze a moment. No vow was spoken, but something settled. Tough as cold iron, respect. The wall's blue bulk swallowed half the horizon by day 3. From the south side, watchers atop Castle Black cheered when they saw the ragtag legion emerge from the tree line. By the time the vanguard reached the gate, the winch operators had lowered the mechanism, and the portcullis gaped open like a giant's maw. The long train filed through, giants stooping, mammoths trumpeting, children staring wide-eyed at the immensity of the ice. Inside, Wintertown erupted in confusion and wonder. Jon had sent riders ahead, yet the scale overwhelmed. Soldiers hurried to direct giants toward the open fields. Stewards ushered families toward the barns. Sam dashed back and forth with scrolls, trying to assign lodging. Bowen Marsh found himself commanding free folk to the soup line. By evening, the once quiet settlement outside Castle Black buzzed more than any city south of the Neck. That night Jon convened a council in the common hall. Stannis sat at one end of the long table, Mance at the other, Tormund somewhere between, Sam, Bowen Marsh, and Melisandre beside the king, while Lady Lyanna Mormont, representing the North's houses, perched on a tall bench, feet dangling. 2 giants loomed outside the hall like silent gateposts. Jon outlined a plan. Fortify each castle along the wall with mixed garrisons, Free Folk, Watch, and Baratheon. Assign Southern Knights to Eastwatch's new shipyard. Dispatch ravens to White Harbor and Gulltown to request additional grain. Repair the ancient Night Fort to house wildling families that had no kin south. Every suggestion sparked debate, but where words grew heated, Jon calmly restated mutual survival. One by one they conceded. When the council adjourned, Stannis lingered. "Your sister wrote," he said. "A raven reached here during our march. She tells of Lannister intrigue, of Tywin's failing health. There will be war in the south." Jon felt a pang for Sansa, but also a distant pull. A chord vibrating low under the earth. There will be war everywhere if the dead come first. Stannis nodded. "We hold here, but after." He shook his head. "After is for survivors." The first 2 weeks went to work. Digging new fire trenches, forging dragonglass spearheads from the satchels Sam and the Crannogmen supplied, rigging scaffolds to lower scorpions along the wall's face, teaching giant clans to fell trees with axes the size of Jon's torso. Stannis Master Builder shaped stout doors from oak thick enough to withstand 2 rams. Blacksmith Donal Noy oversaw weapon production until a coughing fit took him. Even bedridden, he issued orders through apprentices shouting from the infirmary. Every day Ghost returned from ranging with his muzzle bloodied. Snow hair, or sometimes worse. One dawn, the direwolf led Jon to a clearing east of Long Barrow, where tracks showed whites had crept south along the riverbank. They set fire to the dead bodies they found hidden beneath a cloak of snow. At night, from atop the wall, Jon saw flickers of blue flame far off. The enemy at work. He slept little. When he did, dreams shifted. A dragon of midnight blue soared above a city of white spires, roaring flame that came out as starlight. A wolf with wings circled a broken iron throne and howled until the metal warped under frost. He woke each time drenched in ice sweat. But he did not share these visions. Weeks bled to months. Early autumn crept in, though autumn above the wall remained a polite word for winter's younger sibling. Still cold. Still merciless. They dug earthworks across the plains south of the gate, shored up old watchtowers, and posted rangers on a network of signal masts stretching east to Queen's Crown. Supplies trickled from the south. A convoy from River Run, 2 grain ships from White Harbor, escorted by Davos Seaworth back in service, and an unlikely gift from the Iron Bank, crank-powered crossbow ballistae that mounted to the wall's crenellations. Sans ravens flew daily, carrying updates to Maester Luwin's successor in Winterfell, to the Citadel, even to King's Landing, where Tyrion's clandestine network made sure each message landed on selected desks, circumventing Cersei's spies. Every letter closed with a seal of the Wolf Dragon, and each described preparations, victories, setbacks. Jon knew some at court scoffed, but the realm was reading. Then one dawn, 2 riders galloped from the east. Free folk scouts looking half dead from exhaustion. They collapsed at Jon's feet in the yard. An army, one gasped. Ice, thousands. They spoke of a frozen mist that walked, of dead giants armored in rime, of a horn blast so cold that pine needles shattered. They had witnessed the fall of a ranger post at Icemark, and ridden non-stop to carry the word. Jon summoned the command council. They'll be at the wall inside week, he said. Maybe less. Stannis nodded grimly. Then, here we make our stand. They spent that entire day marshalling. Archers along the heights, giants hurling boulders into ready piles, Baratheon catapults loaded with barrels of burning pitch. Free folk shamans wove charms around the gates, muttering in the old tongue. Melisandre lit braziers on every tower, the flames dancing with unnatural vigor. Just before twilight, as Jon walked the wall's rampart, breath a steady rhythm in the sharp air, a commotion rose near the western parapet. He hurried to see. There, against a backdrop of paling sky, a lone raven circled high, larger than any common bird, feathers glinting copper near the throat. When it cawed, the sound rang like a cracked bell. It dove, landing on the railing at Jon's outstretched arm. Something about the bird prickled ancient memory. Not Jorah Mormont's raven, not Sam's. Its left eye was dark with milky cataract. The right eye burned a vivid green. A folded scrap of hide was tied to its leg. Jon removed it, unrolled it. Only 4 words marked the inside, written in a sharp, spidery hand. We come by dawn. No signature. Only that. Jon stared until the ink blurred. Dawn? Did it mean tomorrow? Did it mean a trick of language, dawn on some other shore? Dawn, the metaphorical sense of new era. He realized Stannis had come to stand beside him, brow furrowed at the raven. Bad omen? Jon smiled faintly. Perhaps a good one. Depends who wrote it. He thought of Tyrion's jokes, of Daenerys' rumor, of Bran's impossible gift of green seeing Sam insisted was real. The realm was full of unseen players. Stannis followed his gaze northward. The horizon beyond was a smear of bruising clouds. Snow twirled down again, slow at first, then heavier, until it filled every breath. Night pressed upon them with the hush of a cathedral. Jon ran his fingertips over the hide. Whatever tomorrow brought, it would bring more than wind and blue-eyed corpses. The game pieces moved across the world, uniting in ways none would have guessed. He pocketed the hide, turned to the king. Ready the beacons. At first light we burn the sky. Stannis' grim smile could have cracked stone. As you say, Lord Commander. They descended the stair together, boots ringing on the frozen steps. Throughout the night, drums beat at measured intervals to keep the men awake. 1 strike for the western towers, 2 for east, 3 for central gatehouse. Fires blazed on every parapet, sending the reek of burning pitch rolling out to mingle with the smell of pine tar and horse sweat. It felt like a siege reversed. The defenders lit themselves bright as day, daring the darkness to charge. Jon walked the line, greeting each post, checking each supply cart, clasping shoulders. He told jokes, listened to prayer, promised victories he had yet to imagine. But he could feel it. The men believed. They believed in him, in the watch fueled by nobles and wildlings and giants, in Stannis' iron will, and even in Melisandre's strange fires. The fear was there, but hope stood beside it. Just before dawn, as the last hour of night sagged heavy with snow, ghost whined. Jon followed the wolf's gaze north. In that moment he saw it first, a silver glint on the horizon, like moonlight flashing off a frozen sea. But it was land, not water. A wall of shifting ice dust rolled southward, devouring the forest shadows. Within it moved shapes, tall, gaunt, gleaming like glass shards. Thousands. Trumpets blared. A roar ran the length of the wall. Jon leapt onto a crenel, drawing Longclaw. The blade caught the first gray glow of sun creeping under the clouds. Behind him torches tilted, flinging sparks into the wind. A giant bellowed a challenge so loud the ice trembled beneath their feet. He heard Stannis shouting down on the courtyard. "Loose!" Flights of flaming arrows arced into the pale sky, thousands at once, their tails streaking like comets. They fell upon the oncoming army with hissing fury, leaving trails of smoke. Some winked out in the blizzard swirl. Others struck, igniting dead flesh, showering sparks off ice armor. Somewhere amid the throng, a white walker raised its frost spear. An entire wing of incoming arrows crystallized mid-air and shattered like glass rain. Drums pounded. Giants on the western towers hoisted boulders the size of ox carts onto sling frames and loosed them. The stones disappeared into the white haze. Distant crunches followed. Free folk slingers whirled dragonglass bullets that whistled down into the press. Every few seconds the wall itself spoke, catapults vomiting barrels of pitch, flaming. They burst among the dead, splashing sticky fire that clung and burned blue. Yet the tide kept moving, inexorable. Near the center gate, a section of the ice wall below began to crackle. Frost spread in flowering patterns across the stone, then spider-webbed. Another at the forefront pressed its palm against the outer door. It glowed turquoise, and iron groaned under rime. Men raced to pour boiling oil through murder holes, but the heat turned to brittle steam in midair. Jon signaled to release the fire cages. Atop the rampart, 24 men rolled out iron contraptions, packed with straw and oil, lit them and tipped them. They plummeted like flaming meteors, shattering on impact, fire billowing. For a breath, the onslaught slowed. Then the wall of ice dust parted and stepped a figure taller than any yet seen. A walker in armor of spiked frost, helm shaped like a crown. Blue ice blade, almost the length of Jon's body, dangled from clawed hand. The creature raised its sword. Silence swallowed noise. In that instant, all sound died, except the rasp of Jon's breath. Wind screamed, but stillness reigned. The walker pointed his blade at Jon where he stood atop the crenel. The challenge was unmistakable. Everything inside Jon nodded. Fear tangled with some hot spark he'd felt ever since first drawing breath. He raised Longclaw in reply, steel etched with ripples that drank the newborn sunlight. Below, Melisandre's voice rose on a new chant, louder than any before. Fire erupted across the southern sky, climbing ropes of flame arcing from brazier to brazier down the wall. The silhouette of the wolf dragon standard fluttered red above the rampart, wreathed in sparks. And on the far side of the field, at the edge of sight, another roar sounded. This one not of giants or men, but deep and primal, shaking snow off the branches miles away. A huge shape broke through the low clouds. Wings stretched vast, scales black as volcanic glass, eyes molten. Behind it swept two more shapes, copper and ivory, eclipsing dawn. Dragons. The fire they trailed ignited the horizon. Jon felt the world shudder on its axis. The hide scrap's promise rang in his head. We come by dawn. Flame thundered down, a boiling river that met the wall of winter in midair. Where dragonfire kissed ice storm, the world exploded in steam and shards. The assault line staggered. Walkers hissed, raising weapons. From somewhere behind Jon rose the fierce cheer of 10,000 throats. Stannis shouted commands, his voice lost beneath the sky's crack. Jon grasped the crenel edge, wind blasting his cloak, ghost howling beside him. Dragonfire painted the clouds crimson, Ice shards glittered like falling stars. And between those titanic forces, men and giants and wildlings took up the ancient cry, "For the living!" Jon leapt from the rampart into the rope ladder that swung over the side. He slid down, boots thudding onto the courtyard ramp. Flame and snow whirled around him. Long claw in hand, heart in throat, he raced for the inner gate. Ahead in the swirl, the crown-helmed walker strode through flames that evaporated at its feet, untouched. Jon charged. Time slowed. Each step pounded like the toll of war itself. The two blades, one iron forged in dragonfire, one iceborn in death, rose in mirrored arcs, drew sparks from the air as they met. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that clash. Rippling gray steel against glimmering blue. Frost raced up Longclaw's edge. Heat shimmered across the ice blade where dragon bloodline defied winter's power. Jon braced both hands on the hilt, drove forward. He felt bones threaten to snap under the shock. But he did not yield. Around them, giants hurled boulders. Dragons screamed overhead. Men fought and died beneath red banners and white. Snow and fire commingled into scalding mist. And in that cauldron, the wolf dragon fought the crowned other. For Winterfell, for the Wall, for a kingdom that no longer cared which name he carried so long as he stood. He struck again, and again, until, at last, Longclaw's Valyrian edge bit deep into blue crystal flesh. The blade slid through with a sound like shattering glass underfoot. Light burst from within the walker's chest, an inner sun frozen mid-explosion. Then the creature cracked apart, disintegrating to a swirl of glitter that the wind seized and lifted as a sigh. Jon staggered, panting. He barely had time to raise his eyes before he saw them. Hundreds of wights abruptly faltering, collapsing where they stood. A ripple of collapse raced across the battlefield wherever his foe's kin sensed its fall. The pressure in the air lessened, as though some great hand slackened its grip on the world. But the war was not finished. Far to the east another horn sounded, low, mournful, and a vast army still ringed the gate. Yet a tremor of doubt had taken them. Jon looked skyward. Above, the black dragon wheeled, a silver-haired woman strapped to its shoulders, hair streaming. Her eyes burned with the same promise as his own. The dragons banked, circled for another pass. Jon raised Longclaw, screaming hoarse. Now? Fire? Flaming barrels launched from catapults, arrows streaked, giants roared. Dragons dived, bathing the dead in living fire. Ghost bounded to Jon's side. Together they sprinted into the breach. In that moment neither bastard nor prince mattered. What mattered was the clang of steel, the warmth of a friend's shoulder at his back, the light of dragonfire in a world on the cusp of endless night, and the knowledge that for this single frozen dawn, the living fought as one pack. And somewhere in the roar of wrath and hope, Jon Snow felt the future rising, like a sun behind storm clouds, still hidden, but certain to break free. Gay, K. Snow and embers hissed together where they met, sinking into the churned slush underfoot, until the ground steamed like a living thing. Jon felt the heat of dragonfire lashing his cheeks even through the numbing cold. In places the ice itself sagged and sagged, sluicing runoff down the wall's gleaming face until it froze again seconds later, licking outward like crystal tongues. Somewhere above, the black dragon shrieked, an ear-splitting, visceral sound that cracked across the storm like a whip. And Jon's battered army answered with a roar that was half ecstasy, half raw terror. He ducked beneath the burning talons of a corpse giant that lurched blindly into the courtyard, trailing blue flames down its fur. 4 giants of the then broke from the flank, swinging tree trunk clubs wrapped in iron. The first struck, and the burning beast's knee gave with a crunch like thunder. The second club caught its jaw and sent the skull spinning free in a spray of frozen sinew. The massive body folded but did not fall. White hands clawed the air until Jon drove Longclaw through the spine, splitting the ribs like a knife through rotten canvas. He heard the hiss as icy marrow met Valyrian steel. The giant shuddered once and fell limp atop a pile of twitching dead men. Stepping clearer, he wiped crimson-black gore from his brow with the ragged sleeve of his cloak and scanned for the crowned walker's fragments. The body had melted to glittering slush, yet the shiver that had raced along the white line still pulsed outward like ripples from a stone tossed in still water. Whole clusters of corpses had dropped inert. But farther east Jon saw the silver-blue flicker of another walker striding through the press, ice blade raised high, its long shadow rippling across flame and snow alike. Every swing of that blade reanimated the fallen dead in its radius. Men Jon had watched die moments ago climbed back onto broken limbs and lurched forward beneath a new master. He signaled with an upraised fist. "Archers," he barked over the howling wind. "Second satchel. Glass tips only, east flank." The devils of the storm swallowed his words, but years of drill carried them down the line. Black Brother Haethor loosed the first dragonglass arrow. Mormont's she-bears followed, then a volley of free folk shafts. Smoke trailed the arcs in jagged lines. 3 arrows shattered on the walker's icy cuirass, 2 more missed. The 6th found the creature's exposed neck, the knife edge between helm and breastplate. Shards blossomed, frost cascading down like shards of moonstone. The walker dissolved with a sound like a distant ring of cracked bells. A ragged cheer rippled through the defenders, but it was snatched away as quickly as snow on a hot brazier. For every walker shattered, a dozen more pressed from the blizzard beyond, their outlines blurred in sheets of driven sleet. Jon swung back toward the gate, just as another impact rocked the timbers. This one booming like a battering ram. The ice above cracked again, hairline veins racing outward. A wooden shield wall braced behind the gate groaned as iron nails popped like seeds roasting. Stannis hammered commands to a company of Stormlanders. "Reinforce the brace," he growled, voice raw from shouting. "And bring the pitch forward." When the men hesitated, eyes wide at the sight of another walker bearing down, the king drew his sword with a whistling arc and stepped before them. "Go, or I'll have your hides." Spurred by fear, whether of the dead or their king, the Stormlanders leapt to the gate. Hefting new beams cut from weirwood felled that morning. A sudden horn blast from the west tower rang. 1 note, then 2, then 3. Jon's heart lurched. He turned in time to see the gatehouse watchpoint shudder, ice spiderwebbing across the very stones. Above the parapet, another rode a white horse fused partly to its own icy armor, both halves sculpted from congealed blizzard. The beast's hooves crunched on the walkway like dual hammers. It reared and drove down its front legs. The rampart groaned, chunks of ice skidding free. Jon watched stone and frozen mud sluice down the wall's face. He shouldered through the crush of men. "Giants on the west ramp," he shouted. "Thranmore clubs now." Across the courtyard a knot of then warriors took up the call. They charged, axes flaring. One giant, eyes glowing orange from reflected torchfire, barreled onto the walkway stairs 3 at a time. The walker atop the white horse lifted its spear of black ice and hurled. The spear flew true, intercepted mid-flight by a sudden jet of dragonfire falling from above. The spear shattered mid-air, molten droplets sizzling in the snow. Yelena, the copper-scaled dragon, swept so low Jon smelled the scorched copper tang of her belly scales. Riders ducked, and flames exploded across the parapet. The walker and its mount both erupted into hoarfrost shards. Western stones hissed and steamed. Jon sucked in a breath that tasted of brimstone and frost and iron. Above, Daenerys Targaryen guided her dragon into a rising spiral. Ash and ice whirling behind like the spiral arms of 2 storms caught in collision. At her back flew the ivory dragon, and the black Drogon, plunging again with a roar that shook the marrow of every living thing below. Suddenly the ice field beyond the wall danced. Lines rippled where walker ranks shifted from ponderous advance into measured retreat. But there was no order, only desperation. They had not expected flame from above, nor stone giants, nor wolf dragon banners. Jon saw the hesitation and felt a stab of savage hope. "Push them," he bellowed. "They waver, push until they shatter." The free folk surged past him like an avalanche of teeth and fury. No longer held to ordered ranks, they spilled across the churned corpse field, axes flashing, spears stabbing. Mormont's Northmen followed, and then the Baratheon knights whooped like men drunk on a victory ale. Flint steel rang off brittle frozen ribs. Half-burnt whites fell beneath giant clubs. The walker line bled blue-white motes into the snow. Jon ran with them, Ghost at his side, Stannis a step behind with flame glimmering up his sword's edge. The king called to the Stormlanders to flank right. Jon saw Bowen Marsh leading a ragged line of black brothers straight into a nest of writhing corpses, and realized there would be no time to maneuver. He had to break the dead quickly, or they'd be mobbed. He fought like a man who heard every Winterfell bell toll in his head. Longclaw rose and fell. Each strike seemed to sing, sending sparks across the air where Valyrian met ice. But the cold seeped through his gloves, bit his fingers, turned each grasp clumsy. He flexed and tightened with every swing to keep sensation alive. Ghost lunged, mauled, retreated. The direwolf's white coat slicked crimson around the muzzle, but he never slowed. Twice Jon saw blue pinpoints glimmering in the sockets of whites that turned toward the wolf. Twice Ghost leaped away and drew them onto Jon's blade or a ranger's arrow. A burning barrel of pitch shattered almost at Jon's feet. Fire fanned hot along the snow. He flinched back, lifting his cloak. Flames licked over the leather edges and died almost as fast, quenched by snow and by what must have been Melisandre's ruby blessing on the fabric. He forced his eyes open against the steam and saw the silhouette of a walker no more than 10 yards distant. Tall, slender, arms spread wide as though commanding all snow flurries at once. Its gaze fixed on the dragons turning overhead. Frost crackled across its blade. Jon leapt forward, but a wall of whites walled him away. The walker pointed and those corpses flew, not walked, hands grasping like starving bats. Jon batted one aside, ducked under a frost-stiff arm swinging a butcher's cleaver, and smashed the point of Longclaw through the top of another's skull. Bone and ice fragments burst. He was so close to the walker now he could see his own reflection warped across its cuirass. The reflection's eyes were wide and dark and determined. The walker's eyes glowed azure, twin meteors. Which would go out first? Jon pushed forward. Then the walker turned, fast as a striking adder, and its blade whipped toward Jon's face. He barely caught it with Longclaw. The clash sent a shock of cold up his arms, numbing elbow to shoulder. Sparks burst at the meeting of magic and metal. He staggered but did not fall, cursed breath fuming. Again the walker struck. Again Jon parried, sliding his edge down to hook the ice blade aside. He pivoted, hacked. The walker glided back. He pressed, compelled by wrath and memory. Ned's head on a spike, Ygritte dying in his arms, the children burned by blue wildfire in King's Landing. He roared and rained blows. The sound of each impact was unnatural, like lightning striking glass. The walker's defense faltered. A gap opened beneath its arm, and Jon thrust. Longclaw punctured, cut a seam lengthwise. As the steel bit, light flared in the wound, blinding, blue-white. The walker expelled a thin cry, high and hollow, and collapsed inward, folding like a snowdrift under its own weight. Jon yanked his blade free and stumbled back as the figure shattered and flurried into nothing. Around them whites toppled, strings severed. A hush swept the battlefield, though not stillness, not yet. The dead still rose elsewhere, animated by far-off walkers he could not see. But something fundamental had shifted, something he could feel deep in bone and breath. The foe's purpose wavered. Rage filled the space where that purpose had lived. Walkers left on the fringes shrieked with voices like ripping frost. He sensed new movement overhead. Drogon fixed on a distant wedge of walkers, retreating northward, and stooped. Fire cascaded downward, red gold. But an answering column of black sleet billowed up to meet the flame, extinguishing half the torrent. Jon followed the line of swirling darkness to its source. The ground trembled where a figure taller than any walker he had yet seen emerged from the blizzard. A creature armored in plates of night-hued ice that drank the dragon's fire like water. The Night King. Jon had dreamed of this visage, though never with such blinding clarity. He felt the air tug loose each breath. The Night King raised one hand. Snow parted. From somewhere unseen, shards of ice lifted like javelins. 5, 10, 20, swirling into a spear-shaped storm. With the other hand he gestured skyward. The spears launched, an impossibility of speed, toward the ivory dragon. Jon watched, helpless, as frosted javelins struck the beast's wing. Scales exploded in shimmering bursts. The dragon screeched and faltered, listing sideways toward the ground. But the black dragon dropped from the clouds like an avenging star, flames roaring from its gullet so hot, the very snowdrifts beneath the Night King evaporated. Jon held his breath. For a moment everything, even time, paused between the clash of black fire and black ice. The Night King countered with a wall of frost so dense it looked like raised stone. Fire struck ice and vanished. Not even steam rose. Just an abrupt, sterile nothing, as if the flame had never existed. Drogon banked away. The Night King strode forward. In his grasp coalesced a new spear, longer than the masts of Braavosi cogs and jagged like a lightning bolt carved from glacier. He aimed at the black dragon's breast. Jon moved without thinking. He sprinted past falling embers and one-eyed wights. Ghost bounded after. They crossed the churned earth, hurtling corpses that clutched at their ankles. Jon leapt a broken wagon, slid between two thrashing wights, still locked in combat with thin spearmen, then scrambled up a low ridge of packing snow that broke away underfoot. Over his head a burning barrel soared and burst somewhere behind, casting his shadow long across the snow. And there, across that white canvas, his shadow merged with a second, tall, slender, crowned by antlers carved of ice. Stannis had followed him, sword flaming bright with oil and cloth. "We end him," the king rasped, as though Jon's own thought had become his. Jon nodded once. He felt no grand plan, only certainty. Stannis on his right, Ghost on his left, and all the living behind them. They advanced. The Night King saw them. Even from yards away, Jon felt those glacier blue eyes settle with the weight of an avalanche. The spear pivoted from Drogon and swung toward Jon. Snow knifed the air behind its point. Ghost went low. Stannis raised his flaming blade in salute and hurled it spinning end over end. The blade struck the incoming spear's haft, steel against ice. The spear veered, shaved past Jon so close frost licked his cheek, and buried itself in the wall of snow behind. The earth trembled from impact. Jon closed the last steps. He swung, felt the jolt of resistance as Long Claw cleaved through the Night King's guard. But the crowned walker moved with unsettling grace. A sidestep, one hand palm out to catch the blade. Where his frost fingers touched Valyrian steel, rime crept like white moss. Jon wrenched free, sparks spattering. Stannis stooped to reclaim his fallen sword, but frost raced across its length. He dropped it to save his gloves. Mance Rayder charged from the left, two knives of dragonglass in hand. He dove low, slashing at the Night King's knee. The blade met leg, cut. Ice melted in a flash of blue fire. But black rime spread over the dragonglass hilt, and Mance shouted in shock, dropping it. He rolled away, hand blistering white. The Night King backhanded him. Mance flew 10 feet and thudded limply among snow pleats. Ghost leapt, burying fangs in the Night King's shoulder. Jon saw frost explode like glass. The direwolf's weight rocked the creature, but ice crystallized across Ghost's muzzle. With one savage twist, the Night King hurled the wolf aside. Ghost crashed, tumbled, struggled to rise, jaw rimed with frost whimpering. Jon sprinted, screaming, battering at the Night King's flank. Long Claw hacked shoulder, bit deep. The wound sizzled, but the blade stuck fast, rimed. The Night King shifted his head, eyes abyssal. He laid a hand to Jon's chest. A jolt, like plunging in icy water, seized Jon's lungs. He felt his heart stutter, stammer, falter. Suddenly he was 16 again, lost on the fist, snow creeping into his veins. Snow. Stannis roared, swinging a torch on a chain. He whipped flame across the Night King's back. Blue sparks burst. The creature snarled, a thin, crystalline rattling noise, and turned to face the Baratheon king. Jon's chest burned where the frosted palm had touched. He stumbled, vision doubling. The world tilted. Ghosts howl, distant, carried. And then the ground quake. Not from walker magic, but from something else. The giants atop the wall had released an entire section of the ice catwalk, ropes severed by massive axes. A third of the rampart's topmost length crashed downward, avalanching onto the battlefield. Snow, ice blocks, shattered timber rained in a deafening cascade between Jon and the Night King, burying corpses and living alike. Jon heaved for breath, dizziness swimming. There, half buried near the leading edge of the fall, he saw Melisandre standing with arms raised. The ruby at her throat blazed hot as molten metal. Heat poured from her palms, rolling the edge of the avalanche into vapor. She stepped into the rolling mist, singing not the old tongue this time, but some deeper, older keening that felt like the moment before sunrise. Jon forced his legs to run toward her voice. He found Longclaw, still lodged in the crumbled ice, shattered free of rime, caught the hilt, and yanked. The blade came, gleaming again. He turned, and saw Daenerys swoop in, Drogon passing overhead low enough that his wingtip ripped snow from the rampart. She loosed another torrent of flame, narrower this time, aimed like needlefire at the mound where the Night King had stood. The heat seared Jon's cheeks, but he did not flinch. Fire washed the slope, snow burst to steam. The mound collapsed into a crater. Smoke roiled. The world went quiet, but for the crackle of ice turning to water. Jon's breath came in sawtooth jerks. He stepped closer, sword raised. From within the crater rose a single figure, not charred but shining, as if hammered from cobalt glass. The Night King was scorched, his icy armor dripping rivulets that hissed into vapor the moment they touched the ground. But he stood. He lifted a new sword summoned from vapor. He pointed first at Jon, then at Daenerys on her dragon. His meaning clear. One of you must die today. Jon set feet, raised Longclaw again, but his arms trembled. Stannis staggered beside him, one arm limp, but he matched Jon's stance. Melisandre's chanting grew louder, every word a heartbeat. Azor. She stretched both hands skyward. A high cracks raced through the ice beneath the Night King's bare feet. The ground glowed orange from molten heat, seeping up through fissures. Jon felt it, a pulse reverberating through snow and bone, fire and ice in singular communion. He lifted Longclaw overhead, and in that instant the blade, Valyrian steel forged with dragonfire centuries ago, began to glow. First faint, then bright, brighter, until the rippled metal shone like white iron dipped in sunrise. Flames shivered up the edges, not devouring steel, but inhabiting it. The Night King hurled his sword, a missile of jagged crystal spinning. Jon swung. The blades met midair with a concussion that flattened snow across 20 yards. Shards of blue and silver exploded outward. Jon staggered back, Longclaw intact, its glow fading but present. The Night King's weapon evaporated. The creature turned, seeking another spear, but the cracks beneath his feet widened with a grinding moan. An orange core blazed as the earth itself opened to swallow him. He flung out his arms to conjure icy supports, but the fissures gulped them, melted them. One by one the plates of his armor sagged to liquid. His crown dissolved last, curling like frost flowers on a furnace door. A scream issued. No, not a scream. An echo of frozen wind moaning through the ribs of a dead world. Then, it faded. The Night King fell into the molten chasm, silhouette twisting to vapor. Silence. A hush deeper than any night sky blanketed the field. Jon's ears rang, blood hammering. Steam rose in curtains thick enough to turn giants to shadows. Far off, whites without a puppeteer wavered, collapsed. The ice storm eased as though a windmill powering it had spun down. Snow still fell, but delicate, soft. Jon dropped to one knee, sucking air. Longclaw's brightness dimmed to normal sheen. He stared, half expecting another attack. None came. Instead he heard cheers, tentative at first, rising. Stormlanders pounding shields, free folk hollering war whoops, Night's Watch cawing crows in ragged jubilation. Ghost limped over, muzzle crusted with frost and blood. and pressed his great head beneath Jon's sword arm. Jon scratched behind one ear. "We did it," he whispered. The dire wolf sighed like a bellows and sat. Stannis placed a gloved hand between Jon's shoulder blades. "Dragonfire and wizard songs," he rasped. "And men's iron hearts." He offered a thin smile that in another might be mistaken for warmth. "Well fought." From above, 3 dragons circled, triumphant, the sunrise casting their shadows threefold upon the white plain where the dead were finally still. After 3 days of gathering bodies and burning pyres, after 3 nights of shovel songs and ragged prayers, after healers ran out of salves and had to make do with strong wine, a council convened in the vaulted hall of Castle Black. Melting snow dripped through patched rafters, pattering on hides stretched across the gaps. But the hall was warm, heated by a single living dragon curled just outside, its breath seeping radiant heat through the stone. The smell of sulfur lingered faint. Daenerys Targaryen sat at one end of the long table, a makeshift slab of storm-felled pine set upon casks. Her silver-gold hair was braided, face drawn with travel and grief. The ivory dragon had lost 2 wing spurs, and Rhaegal, she had named him Rhaegal, Jon learned, was grounded with wounds that might never fully mend. Yet her violet eyes shone with purpose, as sharp as ice shards. Jon sat opposite her, ghostly pale beneath the cuts and bruises, his newly forged crownless helm resting on the bench. Stannis occupied the central seat, posture straight despite a sling on his sword arm, lips pressed thin. To his right, Mance Rayder leaned forward, forearms on the table, expression wary but curious. Melisandre stood behind Stannis' chair, ruby dim but alive. Dragons' riders, knights' watch officers, northern lords, wildling chieftains, even a Dornish envoy newly arrived. They lined the hall's perimeter in respectful silence. Outside, the air rang with hammers striking salvage iron. The living world regained itself tree by tree, plank by plank. But here, they would decide what came next. Daenerys spoke first. "The great enemy is broken," she said, voice pitched to carry. "But its remnants cling to the far north. I will cleanse them. Afterward, the realm still stands divided. 7 kingdoms need one heart. Now this better one how." Stannis' jaw worked. "You propose they bend the knee to dragon again. Some may, others will not. They will, if they are wise," she said. She gestured at Jon. "A house already joins fire and ice in him. I know who he is. I knew when Drogon first saw him atop the dragon pit wall. Targaryen blood calls to itself." Jon felt heat climb his cheeks. "The realm doesn't need more crowns," he answered. "It needs to live. Rebuild, dot. South of the Trident, they are dying. War, famine. We can put that right together." He looked to Stannis. "You claim the throne by your brother's failure, yet you came to fight here. Stay, hold the wall with me. Let peace grow south." Stannis glowered. "You make peace sound simple. Yet Cersei still sits the Iron Throne. Tyrell Roses choke King's Landing, and the lion old Tywin lies dying. Chaos breeds quick," Mance snorted. "So forge order from it. When I raided south, I found 7 crowns glittering, none worth a damn to the hungry." He flicked eyes to Daenerys. "You would rule?" "Heh." Nodding at Jon, refuses. "Maybe rule together? Or not at all? Break the wheel as your own midwives whisper." "Nah." Daenerys regarded Mance with a measured gaze. "The wheel breaks only when someone stronger replaces its spokes. My dragons supply strength, yet strength tempered by mercy. Jon knows mercy." Jon's pulse quickened. He looked across the table, into her eyes, and saw not only fire but reflection. 2 lives bound by blood and impossible fate. He had never imagined meeting her like this, yet here they were. He rose. "I pledged long ago to defend the realms of men. That pledge ended beyond the wall, and now I renew it. To every realm, every man or woman who swears peace." He laid long claw upon the table, offering blade, but not surrender. "I do not want the Iron Throne. If the realm calls me, I will answer, but only in unity with you. Together, wolf and dragon." Daenerys' lips parted. For an instant, the hall's hush deepened until even the crackle of the hearth seemed distant. Then she stood as well. Then let the realm decide. Let them see what we have done here. Tamed the winter, broken the Night King, freed the free folk to live unshackled. Let them choose peace under dragon wings, or war under broken crowns. Nenentharan. Stannis stared stony. I concede nothing, he said, but his shoulders sagged. Yet I will not spill more blood for vanity. I will garrison Storm's End, hold the narrow sea and wait. If the realm flocks to you too, so be it. If not, I will still defend against whatever North sends next. Melisandre placed a hand on his good shoulder, whispering into his ear. Stannis' face softened into something like acceptance. Mance leaned back. Good enough for me. The free folk follow Jon. We'll keep to the gift, farm, fight when the North calls. No kneeling. He winked crookedly. But we'll raise a toast when Dragon Queen rides south. Giants grunted assent from the doorway. One pounded its fist against the lintel, causing snow to sift from the rafters. Jon extended a hand across the table. Daenerys clasped it. Her skin felt warm as summer sunlight even in the chill hall. They locked eyes, wolf and dragon, Stark and Targaryen. It felt like the closing of a circle drawn in blood 21 years ago, when a prince and a Stark maid wed under desert stars. He released her hand and turned to the room. We rebuild the wall, and we rebuild the realm, starting here. Smiths will forge new steel, farmers new seedbeds. The wall stands, but open gates invite trade, north and south no longer enemies. We stand as one. The cheer that rose shook the cracked roof. For a heartbeat, Jon glimpsed the future. Not easy, never simple, but alive, beating, whole. Giants dancing with hornblowers at Winterfell's harvest feast. Dragons soaring high above new orchards in the gift. The roar of children laughing where once only fear had lived. Outside, dawn painted the horizon with a flame of its own. Pink, orange, and the faintest breath of green where the sun touched snow fringe. Dragons wheeled above, their shadows threading the clouds like needles, stitching shut the wound in the sky. Jon felt warmth. Real warmth. On his face. He stepped from the hall into that light. Wind stirred the wolf dragon banner overhead. Ghost limped beside, tail swishing. Somewhere south, cities burned in expectation. Yet here at the spine of the world, life had won a single dawn. Jon closed his eyes, felt the hush beneath the wind, heard ravens cawing in the rookery tower. One caw sounded louder, deeper. The black-feathered raven with the half-green eye. It landed on the railing beside him, cocked its head, and spoke in croaking syllables that rumbled like distant thunder. Snow, king, home. Jon's breath caught. He looked over his shoulder at Daenerys standing at the doorway, hair alight with sunrise. She smiled, uncertain, hopeful. He smiled back. Below, the first smith struck the first hammer blow of rebuilding, and metal rang bright across the world. Gan-ka. The ravens arrived in waves through the fragile light of late dawn, every beak clacking with messages of astonishment and dread. Castle Black's rookery rattled like a drum. Quills hissed across parchment. Samwell Tarly's fingers cramped until blotches freckled the pages. He had never sent so many letters, never penned such magnitude. Riders on the wind, dragons above the wall. The Night King broken on molten earth. Even writing the words seemed half dream, half delirium born of bitter sleeplessness. Yet the wax cooled and the seals hardened, and the birds plunged southward. Some to Maester Wolkan in Winterfell, some to Witcher Wolkan in Winterfell, some to World, some for all town with silkstream ribbons wound relentless. Sam steadied them one after the other, whispering comfort, feeling in each feather beat the vibration of a realm about to turn itself inside out. Below the rookery, the battered defenders moved like ghosts through new routines. Frostbitten sentries patrolled charred trenches, dragging glass pike, heads jutting from their shoulders like unnatural growths. Giants lugged pine trunks from the haunted forest, mines set on scaffolds and gates to replace those crushed in the battle. Black brothers and free folk knelt together in mud, sowing hardy winter barley, seed gifted from the last Barrowton stores. in lines along the old donkey track. The sight never ceased to strike Jon Snow. A spearwife humming a lullaby mere paces from a steward of the watch. Two cultures once pledged to each other's extinction, now bending backs over the same furrows, as though they'd migrated here from some gentler song. It made him ache with something close to hope and fear, for if peace had a shape, it was fragile as frost lace, easily shattered by thoughtless footfall. He spent most mornings on the ring wall that circled the main courtyard, conferring with builders, measuring stone gaps, deciding which ruined turrets to reinforce and which to abandon. One afternoon, he stood with Mansraider on the half-repaired rampart, surveying the crawling progress of a new fortified ditch. They spoke little. The wind raked their cloaks, stole each breath. At last Mance cleared his throat, voice rasped raw from nights of command. "Snow," he said. "These folk of yours, my folk now, if you'd have it, are bone-tired, heartsick, and half convinced the world will collapse if they dare laugh. You need a feat." "A feast," Jon repeated, dubious. Mance nodded. "Noise ale, fires blazing, fiddles squealing until dawn. Tell them the war is won, that the next fight belongs to futures so far off they can hardly see. Give them one night of singing. You might grow soldiers out of the ashes." Jon watched a line of women hefting a crossbeam toward a broken embrasure. Their faces were hollow, but determined. "We can hardly spare grain. Traders from White Harbor came behind your dragons 3 days ago," Mance reminded him. "They bartered smoked cod for furs. I counted 4 hogsheads of wine on their wagon." He clapped Jon's pauldron. "Trust me. The night after I first stole beyond the wall with a hand-carved flute, my following tripled. Courage needs memory of joy to keep beating." Jon pressed gloved knuckles to the parapet. "Very well," he conceded. "One feast, after the worst wounds close." A smile ghosted across his mouth, quickly gone. "But you'll stand the first song." Mance's laugh rolled down the rampart like a warm wind. "So long as the Queen of Dragons lends her pipes next. The tales say the Targaryens loved music once. Daenerys had spent most daylight hours assisting Davos Seaworth with triage of Rhaegal's torn wing. The gashes knitted, but the dragon's breaths rasped like bellows full of gravel. Tyrion Lannister arrived 2 days after the victory, astride a frost-coated palfrey, cloak wrapped round both him and Brienne of Tarth. Eyes luminous with disbelief, had set to building a new roundhouse stable of timber and thatch to shield the wounded beast. He supervised the carpenters with quick gestures, measuring each beam like a jeweler weighing diamonds. By twilight, Tyrion would retire to the old East Watchtower converted into an ale-soaked office, and write shrewd, sardonic missives addressed to lords who barely believed he lived, urging them north to see the scar where winter's heart had melted. Sansa's ravens came daily, each sealed with a crimson direwolf. They carried careful notes. Rumblings in King's Landing. The creeping illness stealing Tywin Lannister's vigor. The Queen Regent's fury that her nephew King Joffrey cowered behind barricaded courtrooms while common folk whispered of 3 living dragons. More interesting were the rumors Sansa plucked from Red Keep's servants. The Iron Bank sending unforgiving accountants. The sparrows rising in alley congregations. Tyrell riders purchasing wagons of grain and quietly stacking them beyond Roserad checkpoints as if bracing for siege. "Something must break soon," she wrote in a tight, strong hand. "The walls of the city cannot bend further without falling." Jon read every line, then read them again by torchlight, heart thudding. He trusted Sansa's instincts more than any spies. Yet he could not tear men from the wall simply because politics simmered below. Rebuilding demanded hands. Forest patrols demanded eyes. He answered each letter with stoic warmth, begging her to remain safe. He avoided promising armies until he could promise them bread. But the South seeped into every thought. An insistent tide. As weeks lengthened, Rhaegal's wounds closed, leaving ridges of white scar tissue across emerald hide. On a cloudless dawn, sky crisp as hammered steel, Daenerys climbed onto his back, ignoring Tyrion's fretting. Rhaegal lurched up with a mighty downdraft that flattened tents and scattered parchments. He twisted one full circle over the yard, labored but steady, then settled again. The watchers cheered. Daenerys slid off, flushed, hair glowing in the pale sun. She found Jon at the stables minutes later, excitement trembling through her voice. "Hell fly soon," she said. "Proper flight. South, perhaps. Before deep frost." Jon hooked his thumbs under his belt. "The men will follow that beacon." She tilted her head. "You fear leaving?" "I fear leaving half a task. The wall must stand ready, and my pledge to the Watch forged me to it. But the realm has no patience." He glanced toward the east, where the King's Road vanished under winter. And winter's lessons fade quickly from those who never saw the dead. Daenerys stepped closer, her eyes a shade of violet so intense it outshone the snow. "Bring them the memory then," she said. "3 dragons over a southern sky will teach more than letters." She paused. "Will you ride with me when they fly?" He had not spoken of the blood link between them. Not openly. Whispers traveled, but truth felt private, delicate. Yet the idea of mounting Drogon or Rhaegal at her side stirred a fierce longing. "If ghosts of the old dragon lords will bear it," he answered, "they might still call me Crow." Her smile lit the stable's gloom. "Crows steal kingship of the sky, or so the free folk say. Perhaps it is fitting." 2 evenings later, Sam delivered a bundle of parchments detailing casualties, supplies, progress. Jon scanned in torchlight. At the bottom Sam added a careful note. "Maester Luwin's successor writes that Lord Tywin is near death. Varys whispers in my letter that Cersei plots to crown herself Queen Regnant if Joffrey falls ill. He suggests chaos is ripe to harvest." Jon handed the note to Davos, who stroked his beard. "I served under kings who mistook breathing space for final victory," the smuggler said softly. "Leave her unchallenged and Cersei will root deeper than bramble. Meanwhile, the Iron Bank may choose new patrons." Jon exhaled. "If we ride south too soon, everything we fought for here could rot. If we wait, the lions snap at each other until only bones remain." "Bones draw carrion," Davos warned. "And worse than carrion, Boltons, Greyjoys, sellsword captains who dream of crowns." He lifted his one good hand in a weary gesture. "Your sister may hold the city long enough for your message to reach hearts further east, Dorne, Storm's End, the Riverlands. But she holds that snake pit from within." He tapped the parchment. "Do not let her hand slip for lack of yours." Jon sought solitude on the wall that night. Wind knifed, but he hardly felt it. He laid a palm on the frozen parapet and imagined the line of the 7 kingdoms stretching out below like a board full of carved pieces. Northmen, dragon banners, roses bending under weight of gold, kraken sails lurking. He had once believed destiny a quiet road walled off from him by bastardy. But now destiny rushed like spring thaw, daring him to shepherd it. Footsteps crunched behind. Tyrion emerged bundled in a patched bearskin, a wineskin dangling. "If you mean to jump," the dwarf said, clambering onto a block of snow to match Jon's height, "kindly wait until I've poured a proper vintage. The shock will throw off my nose for months." Jon offered a frost-thin smile, only admiring the vastness. He gestured at the dark horizon. "Easy to forget how small we are. Small or not, you'd be amazed what 2 small creatures can shift if they push from opposite sides of the same stone." Tyrion uncorked the skin, sipped. "Cersei is not a stone exactly, more a cask of wildfire. But the principle stands." Jon folded arms. "You knew I would ask." "Indeed. And I have my answer." He offered the skin. Jon shook his head. Tyrion drank again. "I intend to ride south with Daenerys when Rhaegal heals. A dwarf envoy at her side speaks more loudly than siege horns. The world expects dragons to roar. When they speak instead, people listen." "Nemercy. And what would you have me say?" "The truth, which terrifies more than flame. Show the lords what walked here. Show them the crater where the Night King melted. Tell them winter's shadow falls longest where people forget the cold." Tyrion's expression turned shrewd. "And by Seven's sake, come astride a dragon yourself. I want to see the highborn soil their velvet breeches." Jon laughed, surprising himself. "I barely trust horses. Trust is a luxury. The realm is an anvil. We are steel. Let's see if heat and hammer make something worth singing about. Tyrion squinted into the night. But should the hammer slip, do give me fair warning so I can scurry behind the nearest stone. They parted in good humor, yet Jon's thoughts churned until light nudged the sky. At dawn, he sent ravens to King's Road garrisons, summoning the watch commanders. He met with Mance, Stannis, Davos, Tormund, and Melisandre. It was agreed. The feast would be held beneath the Weirwood Grove 3 nights hence, every remaining cask of ale tapped, every harp plucked raw. But the following morning, a vanguard of 200 would ride south. Northern riders under Lady Lyanna Mormont's banner, free folk scouts skirting ahead, Davos and Tyrion as envoys, and Jon himself. Stannis' brow furrowed. You abandon command too early. Command becomes anchor, if never lifted. Jon replied. Cotter Pike holds East Watch. Bowen Marsh can quartermaster the supplies. Val, daughter of Styre. The free folk trust her, will govern families in the gift. We built a council. Let it do its work. Stannis grunted. And leave me dragons to keep the wall honest. Jon met his gaze. Drogon remains with you. His fire mends the wall faster than 20 furnaces. And he answers Daenerys, who trusts you. Melisandre's smile glimmered. Fire and ice wed in the crucible of fate. The flames tell me truth. The slender key has turned, yet the door ahead yawns dark still. Beware southern shadows, Jon Snow. Her ruby throbbed as though hearing its own tide. When the feast night arrived, torches arrayed through the Weirwood Grove, churned waves of gold across blood-red leaves. The last living giants unrolled drums, made from mammoth hide, and thundered rhythms that vibrated ribs. Free folk burned fermented mare's milk in iron pots, and passed it round until Night's Watch novices coughed and swore it tasted of stars. Lady Lyanna climbed a stump and challenged any man to drinking contest. 3 Baratheon knights accepted and folded before dawn, faces green, while she danced with a spearwife taller than Stannis. Jon watched from a table of rough boards. Ghosts slept at his feet, head on paws. Daenerys poured mead into a horn cup carved with a direwolf and a dragon intertwined. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow, he echoed, clinking horns. Music eased to softer tunes as moon climbed. Under the weirwood canopy, Mance lifted a battered lute. He strummed, fingers tentative at first, then sure. He sang of a she-wolf whose heart loved a dragon, of a tower of joy under desert stars, of promises kept in silence, of winter broken by a kiss of spring. His voice quavered with cold and memory. Tears shimmered on cheeks of strangers who had never known love could echo so far. Jon felt Daenerys' hand slip into his. Her fingers were warm. They listened until the strains stilled and the night exhaled around them. No one spoke. The hush felt holy. When dawn's gray came, the vanguard assembled at the gate. Horses stamped plumes into the chilled air. Rhaegal, a little unsteady but proud, crouched in the yard. Daenerys mounted first, gloved hand steadying a saddle Tyrion had commissioned from the last Braavosi leather master living at Mole's Town. She extended a hand to Jon. He stared at it. This was the leap into winds he could not see. Ghost nudged his thigh as if to say, enough doubting. Jon climbed behind her. Rhaegal's shoulders were warm through oiled leather. Tyrion hopped onto a shaggy Garin, no saddle tall enough for his pride. Davos swung up beside him. Lyanna Mormont adjusted her sword belt, chin high. Giants hauled the gate chains. The world beyond shimmered under a sky, the color of hammered silver. Jon turned once to see Stannis atop the wall, cloak snapping. The Baratheon lord raised his unbandaged arm in salute. Drogon twined overhead, black wings stirring snow devils, but staying inside the rampart like a watchful shadow. Rhaegal stretched his wings. The wind caught. Snow spiraled. With a visceral living lurch, the dragon leapt. Jon's stomach fell. Air roared past. The wall dropped away like a collapsing tower. He clutched Daenerys' waist unconsciously. She shifted, guiding the dragon into a smooth climb. They leveled thousands of feet up. The world below was vast, patchwork forests blanketed white. The kings rode a faint thread of dark ribbon. The vanguard below looked like dust motes swirling behind a hand. Jon's pulse hammered. Fear mingled with raw, unfiltered awe, then melted into exhilaration fiercer than any he'd felt swinging a sword. Daenerys twisted to glance over her shoulder. Her braid danced like a banner. "Breathe," she said, laughter brightening her eyes. He did. They banked south, wings carving air. Clouds streamed, shimmering in morning light, crystals bursting around them. To the east, the sea glinted pewter. Far below, the riverlands unfurled in subtle greens where snow had melted, revealing first glimpses of thaw. Life after death, he thought. The living world claiming its due. Hours later, they glided at low altitude above an abandoned holdfast near the neck, where the vanguard made camp. Fires dotted the courtyard like amber gems. Jon dismounted on shaking legs, half from cold, half from the absurd fact of standing alive after flying the heavens. Tyrion grinned up at him. "Not bad for a bastard's bastard," he quipped. Jon clapped his shoulder. "I'll take that." That night they gathered around a single bright flame. Scouts from the south had joined, northerners dispatched by Glover and Reed. Their news brought tension. Roose Bolton had seized Deepwood Motte, dispatching seaborne raiders to prey on White Harbor ships. Euron Greyjoy lurked in the stepstones with sail numbers swelling. In King's Landing, Tywin Lannister's fever had turned, lungs filling. Cersei's raven scoured the crownlands, summoning bannermen to proclaim immediate regency once the old lion's heart failed. Meanwhile, the faith militant marched down cobbled lanes, chanting for judgment of sins they dared not name. Daenerys listened, brows knit. "We will need allies within the city walls before we arrive." Davos nodded toward the dwarf. "The imp still knows secret tunnels." Tyrion's smirk was small. "Summon. But wine cellars cannot hide dragons. We need something else. Fear, awe, perhaps mercy." He rubbed his hands by the fire. "Let the people see a queen who ended winter. Cersei can slaughter dignitaries, but every beggar south of the Manor worships whoever fills their bellies." "We fill ours first," Jon said, though quietly. Bolton raids threatened supply lines. Lyanna rose, wool cloak sweeping. "House Mormont still honors its debts," she announced. "A raven flies home tomorrow. My Aunt Mage will muster every sword on Bear Island and sail past Deepwood to harry the Kraken's tails." Her chin lifted. "No flayed man treads northern soil without price." Davos smiled despite weariness. "Courage runs in your blood, my lady." "Courage," she said, "is less than fury. And we are furious." The council fell to mapping lines on charred hide. Jon guided with measured words, yet inside his heart thrummed. The enemy had names now. Bolton, Cersei, Greyjoy. None were blue-eyed corpses, but they threatened the living with same hunger, greed, cruelty. He thought of Eddard Stark kneeling in a sunlit court, and of Arya's empty place at Winterfell's hearth. Of the children lost in alleys of King's Landing. Of free folk burned in iron cages by then cannibals. If this new alliance failed, those memories would breed fresh darkness. He rose before first light. Mist rolled low. He walked beyond the ruined gatehouse and knelt where a single crocus pushed through frost. Ghost padded behind and sat, tail curled. Jon touched the delicate purple petals, marveling. The world found ways to live. When he stood, Daenerys was there, a silhouette haloed by dawn fire. She watched him silently for a time. The hush felt almost sacred. "All growing things return," she whispered. "My father burned fields to ash. I would plant them." Jon nodded. "Plant them together, then." They returned to camp. The riders rose, stamping numb feet. Davos mounted. Tyrion wrapped a scarf thrice round his neck. Giants in the rear guard shook snow from shaggy shoulders. Rhaego crouched, flexing heeled wings, breath forming steam dragons in the chill. Jon strapped Longclaw across his back and swung up behind Daenerys once more. He looked north, toward a wall shimmering pale gold in the far distance, toward the lives had left to guard that fortress. Men moved small as ants across the parapets. but he could almost hear them. Songs drifting, hammers clanging, laughter fragile yet growing. Then he turned south. The road lay ribboned through glades dusted by newborn green. Somewhere beyond, a thicket of thrones awaited. All barbs and poison wine, but he carried winter's truth in his blood and spring's promise in the dragon beneath him. The sky yawned, blue and wide. Rhaegal leapt. Wings filled. The ground slipped away. Jon braced, feeling the fierce pull of oncoming winds. Winds of war, winds of change. He did not flinch. The horizon beckoned, and he flew toward it. Half wolf, half dragon, whole heart. Behind him, in the bright hush of morning, the crocus shivered open, daring the sun,